Chapter 323. The Flower Festival was the birthday of 100 flowers. Young girls in their prime wore bright clothes and had flowers painted between their eyebrows. They walked gracefully, surrounded by maids, and worshipped the flower god. In the words of the audience in the streaming room, it was a day full of dog abuse. Spring is coming and everything is full of life. What a good day for young men and women to tell each other their hearts, and single dogs continue to cry. Jiang Pingji sat on a tree branch. There was a gathering in the distance. The young, beautiful and energetic girls were indescribably beautiful under the spring sun. Not only did they attract Jiang Pingji's attention, but they also attracted the gazes of a group of young nobles. White was chewing the weeds that had sprouted on the ground. He spat it out after chewing, then went on to harm another patch of tender grass. She smiled and lifted her foot to touch White's mane with the tip of her toe. Walked away in disgust. Jiang Pingji smiled and talked to White. "You're not young anymore. Do you want me to find you a partner? How many cubs do you want?" White squinted and made a sound as if it was mocking her. She did not understand horse language, but the little angel in the streaming room seemed to have learned the language and helped her translate. "Yekaken," White's voice. "My stupid master, how many days have you not washed your feet? What did Ian do to I? Wrong. White is obviously a single dog and you want to mock me. Wicked people. Rinzhong Chi too. This young lady is very popular. I just noticed a strange horse trying to flirt with Dabai." Jiang Pingji secretly rolled her eyes. Was she not as attractive as the horse Whitey? She leaned on the tree branch and closed her eyes to rest. Because of the terrain, the air in Xianxia was warm and humid. The pear blossoms that only bloomed in March were now all over the branches. When the spring breeze blew, petals would rustle and fall. She leaned against the tree trunk and propped her legs up. One hand was on her knee and the other was holding the wooden clogs that she took off. Her feet were only wearing snow-white socks. Half of her body was hidden in the pear blossoms. If one did not look carefully, one would not notice that there was a person lying on the tree. A cool breeze blew and the pear blossoms rustled and fell. Jiang Pingji could vaguely hear a conversation in a low voice. "Wunyang, did you really take things too hard and reveal your thoughts to your father?" The girl's voice was sweet, but it was so sweet that it made people feel sick. "Dad is an open-minded person. If I tell him, he will help me decide." The voice of the girl called Wunyang was a little hesitant and dejected. "But Brother Ci already has someone else in his heart, and father doesn't agree either. He asked me to take advantage of the flower festival to find someone else I like." The girl with the sweet voice pouted in dissatisfaction. "How can you do this? Then do you know who that person likes?" Wunyang looked slightly worried. "I don't know. I asked my father but he refused to tell me. He only said that he would naturally know when the time is right." The girl tilted her head, thought for a while and said with certainty, "Then he's definitely not a decent person." Wunyang did not understand. She asked doubtfully, "Why do you say that he's not a decent person?" "You don't understand. Wei Langjun is now 21 years old. If he really has someone he likes, he definitely won't delay it like this. Unless the girl's identity is not good, for example. He doesn't have the face to marry someone from that kind of place. Don't you know that all the matchmakers in Xianxia County don't dare to matchmake for him? He's already in trouble. If he continues to delay it, what about the issue of heirs?" After listening to her, Wunyang only understood what she meant after a long while. She suddenly blushed and she felt a little angry. Brother Ci is not that kind of pedantic person. Even if he really likes a woman from a brothel, he won't be so concerned about his reputation. How could Wei Ci continue to let the person he liked suffer for the sake of his reputation? Wunyang could not accept someone slandering Wei Ci like that. "Then he likes married women." The girl spoke before Wunyang, stopping her from speaking. "All the matchmakers in Xianxia County can't wait to cover their noses and avoid Wei Ci. No one matchmakes for him and his marriage is not settled. Now that a beauty like you has taken a fancy to him, he should respond happily. Why would he use the excuse that he has a sweetheart to reject you?" Wunyang was a little angry. "I won't allow you to say that about him. How can a gentleman covet someone else's wife and concubine?" The girl pouted and said shrewdly, "You're so protective of him, but he doesn't even look at you properly. You're in a hurry to get close to him, but has he ever given you any face? What's so good about Wei Ci? He's a jinx who brings misfortune to his wife and children, his parents and his entire clan. Foolish opinion. Wunyang was so angry that her chest rose and fell violently. There was a little anger on her little face. What about Brother Xie? Look at his behavior. He respects his teachers, is friendly to his schoolmates, and treats the younger generation leniently. How can you judge him based on the 8 characters of fortune? There are many people in the world like the 8 characters of fortune of the emperor. Why is he the emperor while others are just common people? Yes. I'm ignorant. I'm not as knowledgeable as you, 5th Miss Zhu. The girl was also angered. It was as if her sore spot had been hit. She retorted, "You're so educated, reasonable and considerate. You're actually sticking to a man who no one wants. That's great." You. Wunyang widened her eyes at her words. She was so angry that her fingers were trembling. No matter how bad Zixiao is, he's not someone who can be belittled by a daughter born of a commoner's wife who lives in poverty and is arranged by her official mother to be someone else's concubine. Jiang Pingji found that the 2 girls were arguing louder and louder, which seriously disturbed her sleep. She could not help but jump down from the pear tree and interrupt them. The 2 girls looked over upon hearing the sound and saw a young man in fresh clothes with a smile on his face. He was only wearing socks and his wooden clogs were still in his hands. The girl was startled by her appearance. Thinking of what she said just now, her face turned pale. Wunyang was still a little puzzled. She asked doubtfully, "Concubine? You'd better be more careful in the future. It's better to stay away from such a talkative and venomous beauty who likes to judge people's hearts with sinister words." Jiang Pingji took 2 steps forward and saw through the girl's nature at a glance. She sized her up with a faint smile. She belittles Zixiao not because she really looks down on him, but because she wants to plan for herself. Wunyang was stunned. Her official mother wants her to marry a man who is old enough to be her father. She's unwilling and wants to find a better way out for herself. Zixiao is despised by others, but she doesn't have a high status and is not valued at home. How compatible are they? That's probably what she thinks. Jiang Pingji stared at the girl until her face turned pale. Her legs trembled and her words poked at the secrets in her heart. If I hear any rumors that tarnish Zixiao's and this girl's reputation later. Jiang Pingji's expression suddenly turned cold. Guess who will spread the rumors? Wunyang was an innocent girl in the boudoir, but she had an open-minded father. She was also knowledgeable, but she did not stick to the inner courtyard. Chapter 324. You have to be careful when making friends. At least this kind of friend isn't worth making. Jiang Pingji pointed at the girl and said, "If you know what's good for you, leave. I don't like to make things difficult for a 15 or 16-year-old girl. It makes it seem like I'm a bad person." The girl bit her lower lip and tried hard to resist the urge to tremble. She turned around and ran away with her face covered. Wunyang was confused from the beginning to the end. "Little girl, you should be more cautious. Not everyone is worth befriending and not every topic can be confided in." Jiang Pingji glanced at Wunyang's attire and frowned. "Are you Zhu Wunyang from Master Yuanjing's family?" She had long heard that Master Yuanjing had a precious old daughter, but Jiang Pingji had never seen her. "How did you know?" "I've seen the hairpin on your head at Master's place. You're also called Wunyang. I think you must be Master's precious daughter." Wunyang subconsciously raised her hand and stroked the hairpin that was inserted into her hair bun. Her pale face was a little flushed. "Are you my father's student?" Jiang Pingji nodded and conveniently put down the wooden clogs in her hands. She wore them on her feet with a calm expression. "But I've never seen you. There are so many students in Lanyi Academy, and not all of them are personally taught by Master. It's normal that you haven't seen him before." It was called an academy, but it was very different from the school that Jiang Pingji knew. Rather than calling it an academy, it was more like a library for part-time teaching. Most of the students came with questions to discuss with others. If they could not find any answers, they would look for Master Yuanjing to solve their doubts. Most of the time they would be studying on their own or having fun. They would only be present when Master Yuanjing was teaching. Of course, the younger students had their own teachers in charge of teaching them how to read and write. Jiang Pingji didn't belong to the group of initiators, so naturally she wouldn't stay in the academy for long. It was normal that they hadn't met before. "Oh," Wunyang replied and lowered her head. When he thought about how his conversation with the young girl had been overheard by this person, he felt extremely uncomfortable. "Can I ask a question?" Jiang Pingji furrowed her brows. Why is Xixiao being vilified by others? Based on the conversation between the two girls, she could more or less guess what was going on, but there were still some things she didn't understand. It was too ignorant and arbitrary to judge that Wei Xi was not good just based on his horoscope. Wunyang looked hesitant. She initially thought that Jiang Pingji deliberately pretended not to know to get information from her, but upon taking a closer look she realized that Jiang Pingji really did not know. Actually, you can't blame Brother Ci for this. Wunyang pursed her lips, feeling sorry for Wei Ci. Because Brother Ci was born at the wrong time and he lost his mother when he was born, he was almost strangled to death when he was born. In the end he was lucky enough to survive, but he was not well received. Jiang Pingji raised her eyebrows. That's it? How could they be despised by the entire Langia County just because of this? Although the girl who ran away was talkative and had some evil intentions, Jiang Pingji felt that she was not lying about Wei Xi's situation in Langi. This. Wunyang stammered. She had no choice but to say, when Brother Ci was 15 years old, his father's second wife tried to arrange a marriage for him. The two families were about to match their 8 characters, but as soon as the 8 characters were taken out, the woman resolutely broke off the engagement and spread the 8 characters. Jiang Pingji was still confused. What kind of strange horoscope could cause such great power? That horoscope is famous for cursing wives, children, parents, and even the whole clan. Therefore it is feared by people. Seeing that Jiang Pingji did not understand, Wunyang had to bite the bullet and continue. Brother Ci was born on the 22nd day of the 8th lunar month in the year of Kueyo. 22 ND day of the 8th lunar month in the year of Kueyo? Jiang Pingji faintly felt that this day was a little familiar. She could not help but think deeply. She seemed to have seen it somewhere before. This time of birth. Jiang Pingji suddenly thought of the content of a piece of unofficial history and said, "Is this really his birth date and 8 characters?" Yes. Jiang Pingji suddenly understood why Wei Ci was so feared and ostracized by people. If he was born in the year of Kueyo, Wei Ci was separated from that historical figure by exactly 360 years, which was 180 years. Having been in ancient times for so many years, Jiang Pingji was quite familiar with some taboos in this era. 60 years was a cycle, and Wei Ci's date of birth coincided with that of a famous historical figure. Moreover, he was born without a mother, which seemed to confirm his fate of cursing his mother. This made people uneasy. Could it be that he was the reincarnation of that famous person? Which famous figure? The founding prime minister of the Xia dynasty, Huangfu Fengmin, was born in Langia County. He was also a famous romantic figure in the past. The ancestors of the 3 tribes of the northern borderline, the Qiangu tribe, led 500,000 cavalrymen in rattan armor and swept through half of the central plains. In the end they were stopped by this person at the Sichuan plain. With a big fire the sky darkened and the earth darkened. 500,000 wronged souls were buried in this plain. Not a single one survived. According to some old people, on special days the Sichuan plain would be filled with white dust, like the ashes of those cavalrymen. This was probably not considered ruthless. What was more ruthless was that this person had once made tens of thousands of captives into human flesh and dried meat for the army to use. He had resisted the most tragic battle before the founding of the Xia dynasty. He seemed to have done many things like burning cities and massacring them. It was not wrong for the enemy to hate him because he was ruthless to the enemy, but why did the descendants of the Xia dynasty also avoid and hate him so much? According to rumors, this person held the young emperor hostage and tried to replace him. In the end, he was killed by the young emperor who bore the humiliation and carried out his mission. The young emperor probably hated this person to the core, so he cut off his head and separated his corpse. He took out his heart and made it into food to be cooked and shared with many officials. When she read this part of history, Jiang Pingji was completely dumbfounded. That was not the end of it. There was another unofficial historical rumor that said that the young emperor and his confidants had conspired to summon the most accomplished Daoist priest in the country to make a soul-suppressing peachwood coffin. His headless body was placed inside the coffin, and his soul was imprisoned. They used the monstrous hatred in his heart to suppress the Xia dynasty. The unofficial history also said that before the Xia dynasty was destroyed, there was thunder and lightning and a flood. This caused the mountains to collapse, revealing the peach coffin. The peach coffin was split open by a farmer who went up the mountain to chop firewood. He released the wronged souls and ended the fate of the Xia dynasty. Wuxia was born after the Xia dynasty was destroyed. People could not help but suspect that this person was the reincarnation of that person who came to take revenge. Unfortunately, Wuxia's appearance became more and more handsome after he grew up. He was full of talent. Whether it was the 6 arts of a gentleman or other unorthodox skills, he displayed impressive talent. When the annulment of the engagement happened, this date of his birth spread throughout Langia County. Naturally, people were anxious. It was not to the extent of taking Wuxia's life, but his life would not be easy. I didn't know that Zixiao had such a legendary past life. Jiang Pingji teased him with a smile. Wunyang was so anxious that her eyes turned red. Brother Ci can't be the reincarnation of Prime Minister Huangfu. It's also impossible for him to do such a despicable thing. Jiang Pingji tilted her head. Prime Minister Huangfu assisted Emperor Xia and helped him go from a lowly ruffian to a hegemon who unified the 9 states. What kind of person was he? If that person was the reincarnation of that person, Wuxia should be happy. In today's world there might be a lack of such a person. But Wunyang was confused. This was not the main point. But it seemed that there was nothing wrong with thinking that way. Jiang Pingji called the system in her heart. No, what kind of dimension is this? There's actually such an anti-science thing as reincarnation? The system rolled its eyes. He's not the reincarnation of that person. Everything is purely a coincidence. Jiang Pingji was speechless. Coincidence? Would Wuxia cry if he heard that? Chapter 325. This is the first time I've heard it from an outsider. Many of my father's students think that Brother Ci was born with bad luck. They see him as an ominous person and wish they could cover their noses with their sleeves, as if he was the plague. Although no one said anything on the surface, they have been distancing themselves from him behind his back. Wunyang was very dissatisfied with the injustice that Wuxia had suffered. She also firmly believed in her own opinion of Wuxia, but she was small and not many people would listen to what she said. Now that she met someone who shared the same ideals as her, she could not be happier. It's just the opinion of the ignorant. Jiang Pingji pouted and said, countless children were born on the same day and at the same time. Do they all have the same fate? Are the children born on the 22nd day of the 8th lunar month in the year of Kueyo the reincarnation of Prime Minister Huangfu? It's just that his performance was too outstanding, so he was envied by others. Those people can't compare to him, so they can only use this stain to slander him. That's right. Those people don't understand Brother Ci at all. They echo what others say and don't have their own brains. They follow the crowd all day long. Wunyang was in high spirits. She clenched her fists and nodded, looking extremely happy. Seeing that, Jiang Pingji could not help but laugh. The audience in the streaming room also expressed that the little girl was very cute. She felt completely different from the coquettish bitches outside. Lao Ciji Lianming, haha, this little girl likes beauty Wuxia, right? Nuguan In, the little girl is still young. How would she know whether she likes him or not? I feel that she is more like a girl chasing after a celebrity. Beauty Wuxia is her idol, so she does not allow outsiders to maliciously slander her idol. She swears to defend his reputation. Remote control you dropped. Please, in ancient times there were many girls who got married at the age of 12 or 13. How is he young? Nongfu Shangquan Yudiangshuan, Tiske, girls who get married at the age of 12 or 13 are mostly from poor families. Slightly wealthier families will definitely keep their daughters for a few more years, at least until they reach the age of 15 before getting married. Master Yuanjing's daughter, how can her family be poor? Jiang Pingji also agreed with the audience in the streaming room. Wunyang did have romantic feelings for Wuxia. Why are you looking at me like that? She looked like a lecher. Wunyang felt slightly uncomfortable under Jiang Pingji's gaze. He could not help but take a step back. There was an unnatural look on her face. Jiang Pingji burst into laughter and exposed him. You like Zixiao? Wunyang blushed and immediately gave up. You stayed on the tree for so long just now. You heard everything that you shouldn't have heard. You asked the obvious. I just like Brother Ci. Father said that he's a good family. If he's my husband, he definitely won't suffer. Wunyang liked Wei Ci and even wanted to marry him. It was definitely not because of his looks. He was not that superficial. Many of her female friends were engaged, but what about their husbands' families? Thanks to her identity as Master Yuanjing's daughter, she would occasionally go to the academy to deliver food to her father and would always hear some gossip. Men were not married yet, so there were plenty of times when they had conflicts with the maidservants by their side. They even had a concubine's child to embarrass his wife. It was not impossible for him to spoil his concubine to the detriment of his wife. Because of Master Yuanjing's open-mindedness, Wunyang naturally had to choose someone that suited her. Not only did she have to love her, but she also had to understand and take pity on her. When Samwa's son had a difficult birth, the servants wanted to throw him away so that he wouldn't bring bad luck if he died in the house. She had no choice but to ask Wei Ci for help. When he heard it, he did not regard the lives of Sanwu and his son as worthless. Instead, he rolled up his sleeves and did not dislike the blood. He did not annoy Sanwu and made her scratch him when she was in pain. He actually delivered Sanwu's child with a serious expression. Anyway, after this incident, Wunyang really liked Wei Ci. Suitable room and suitable home? The corner of Jiang Pingji's mouth twitched. It was the first time she had heard such an evaluation. The audience in the streaming room almost exploded. The screen was full of 666. Liang Liang Wang Situ, my language teacher died early. Can you explain to me what is suitable room and suitable home? Yinuejia Zhuge, the heavenly peach, the dazzling beauty, the return of the sun, suitable room and suitable home. Understand it yourself. She felt like she had read a fake book of songs. Jiang Pingji held back her laughter and said, if you like it, just tell him directly. According to Zixiao's character, regardless of whether he accepts it or not, he won't spread the news and ruin your reputation. Wunyang said dejectedly, but Brother Ci has someone else in his heart. He's a serious person. I don't want to compete with others. So, Jiang Pingji asked. So, I hope he can be with his sweetheart as soon as possible. He's already 21 years old this year. If it drags on, it'll be really difficult for him. Wunyang pouted. She felt a little sad and said awkwardly, anyway, I'm only 13 this year. There will definitely be other good candidates for my husband. That's true. Jiang Pingji liked Wunyang's open-minded character very much. Master Yuanjing was very good at raising his daughter. The audience in the streaming room also expressed that they were attracted to Wunyang. Didn't you see how many girls in the house adhered to the principle of, the person I like must like me and reciprocate my feelings? Chapter 326. He lowered his voice to warn her. I'm not someone who doesn't know what's important. Otherwise, I would have called you out when you got close to me. Jiang Pingji was not afraid at all. Instead, she glared at him. Wei Ci came at the right time, neither too early nor too late. Jiang Pingji originally wanted to fulfill his wish, so she did not expose his identity. Now that she saw it, the young girl was open-minded and could let it go. The man did not have any intention either. Her efforts as a matchmaker were in vain. Wei Ci lowered his eyelids after Jiang Pingji said that. He hid the strange look in his eyes. You're too boring. You have a lot of thoughts. Jiang Pingji clicked her tongue. She rested her hands on the back of her head. Her wide sleeves slid down her arms, revealing two fair, slender arms. Her wrists were slender and beautiful. Wei Ci averted his gaze awkwardly, not daring to continue looking at her. Jiang Pingji did not miss his reaction. She smiled and deliberately got closer to him. She whispered, Fortunately, I'm a sensible person. Fortunately, I'm a sensible person. If I were a little slow-witted, I might think that you're a homosexual. Wei Ci's face darkened. What do you mean? How can a normal man blush when he looks at another man's arm? He even pretends to avert his gaze. Others won't suspect anything wrong with the latter. They'll only think that the former has unusual feelings for the latter. Men in this era would not say anything even if they were shirtless, not to mention showing their arms. Wei Ci's face darkened even more after hearing that. He secretly clenched his fists in his sleeves. Jiang Pingji saw that he did not leave but stayed where he was. She could not help but be curious. Looks like you came here specially to look for me, she said confidently. If it were any other day, you would have flung your sleeves and left if I provoked you like this. Why would you still be standing there like a log? Tell me, why are you looking for me? Wuxia was speechless. The pear blossom petals fell with the breeze. There was no one around and no one saw their abnormality. The audience in the streaming room watched the whole scene. They felt sorry for Wuxia, the unlucky child. Up until now, the men that Jiang Pingji had met were either bullied by her like a little white rabbit once, after which she lost interest in them, or they were in cahoots with her. Both of them were not good people. Only Wuxia was bullied by Jiang Pingji whenever she saw him. They did not know Weixi's current state of mind, but they really felt sorry for him. Lao Ciji Lianmeng, host, can you find someone else to fight? Host V, I'm not willing to. Everyone, Weixi's expression changed again and again. In the end, he suppressed the surging emotions in his heart. I heard people say that the flower festival is your birthday. But you didn't hold a birthday party and you didn't invite any friends, so I can't be sure. He had once thought that the flower festival was her birthday. Every year on this day all the officials would celebrate and the whole world would celebrate, but he still hadn't forgotten the scene of her destroying all the gifts by herself. All the maids were chased out by her and no one dared to approach her. Wuxia did not know why she was like this and did not dare to ask. He still had a lingering fear in his heart. He didn't know why, but he suddenly had the courage to ask about it. The flower festival is indeed Lu Shi's birthday. Jiang Pingji smiled and squinted her eyes. Her answer might seem problematic to outsiders, but it was harmless. After all, wasn't she Lu Shi? When Wuxia heard this, he faintly felt that this was the case. Are you here to give me a gift? Jiang Pingji had been in Langyi all these years, and her birthday had always been spent with longevity noodles. She had never had such a flashy but impractical occasion. At most she would have a richer meal on that day and wear brand new clothes. Yes. Wuxia responded softly. Jiang Pingji suddenly felt a little guilty. He came to give her a birthday gift, but she rebuked him with her words, which made her feel suffocated. Thinking of this, she felt that it was not easy for Wuxia. What is it? Jiang Pingji asked directly. Wuxia did not feel offended. After all, this person's reaction was already considered giving him face. It's my humble work. It's barely acceptable, Wuxia said. He took out a very delicate pendant. Beauty sleep. Jiang Pingji took it. A few beauty sleep flowers were in full bloom, and their petals were stretched. They were made of bloodstone and the veins were handled very well. From afar, it looked like a beauty sleep that had just fallen from the branches. She could not help but raise her eyebrows slightly. Zixiao's skills have improved greatly. The stone was not of the highest quality, and it was made by Wuxia himself. Although it was not valuable, it was the thought that counts. Over the years in Langyi Academy, Jiang Pingji had been invited to other people's birthday parties. Most of the gifts she gave were the students' own works. Manuscripts, carvings, paintings and calligraphy. Friendship was more important than value. Wuxi's gift of this pendant could only be said to be average. But Jiang Pingji secretly glanced at the bullet screen. Sure enough, there was a bunch of people ridiculing Wuxia. Bingtang Lemon, invisible pretense is the deadliest. What do you mean by clumsy work, barely acceptable? Muyi, I've been learning carving for a few years, but I can only hug myself and cry. Jiang Pingji felt better. Host V, it's okay, I'll help you. In an instant, the bullet screen that ridiculed Wuxia turned into heartache. He was rebuked before he gave the gift, and now he was rebuked after he gave the gift. How pitiful. Thank you. In another place, Wunyang was in a good mood. She worshipped the flower god and prayed for her family as usual. In the end, she shyly added, "May I have a lover and stay together till death." The flower festival was indeed very lively. The beautiful young girls in fresh clothes competed with each other for beauty, and the young men who were dressed in elegant robes became a unique scene. Listening to the rhythmic recitation of the elegant gathering, Wunyang was thinking about her marriage. He did not have to think about Wuxia. They were not fated to be together and she could not force it. There were many young talents at the flower festival, but compared to Wuxia, all of them were overshadowed. Back home, Wunyang was still worried about this matter. Master Yuanjing looked at her pouting face and could not help but smile. He asked her, "Did you fancy anyone today?" No, I can't compare to brother Ci at all, Wunyang said. Yuanjing's wife saw that her husband was so inappropriate, and she suddenly became a little angry. How can you teach your daughter like this? I'm really afraid that when Wunyang reaches the age of 15, no one will dare to propose marriage. How can you let Wunyang make the decision herself? Master Yuanjing said, Why are you so worried? If no one proposes, then so be it. Can't an old man like me support Wunyang? His wife was also angry. You know that you're old. How many years can you protect Wunyang? You don't plan well for her and you only cause trouble. Master Yuanjing was erudite and eloquent, but he did not dare to talk back to his wife. He secretly glanced at his daughter and saw that Wunyang was smiling at him. She was watching the drama unfold. There are so many young talents. Is it true that none of them fancy anyone? Master Yuanjing stretched his neck to make sure that his wife was far away. Then he turned to ask his daughter. There are people, but I don't know if they have a marriage. Who? Lu Shi. He's about the same age as me. He's quite humorous. He's not as bad as the rumors say. Master Yuanjing was speechless. Chapter 327. Who are you talking about? Master Yuanjing would rather admit that his ears were not working and that he had auditory hallucinations than to hear that name from his daughter's mouth again. Wunyang did not understand. She smiled and repeated, Lu Shi. Isn't he your student father? He was accepted into Langyi Academy, so he must have no problem with the major issues. As for his character, I think I need to observe him further. She can't do it. Master Yuanjing denied. His firm attitude puzzled Wunyang. When she said that she liked Wei Ci, her father did not show any objection. Instead, he was happy to see it happen. It was a pity that he already had a girl he liked. Wunyang disdained to compete with others, so she chose to give up sadly. Now that it was Lu Shi, why did her father reject her so decisively? Is Lu Shi already married? Wunyang thought about Jiang Pingji's appearance and age. She felt that it was highly possible that he was engaged. The current trend was for men to marry early. It was rare for a man like Wei Ci to be single at the age of 1 in his 20s. If that was the case, Wunyang could not force him. No. It's just that your temperaments are not suitable. Master Yuanjing was usually eloquent, but he was speechless now. He did not know how to explain it to his daughter. Lu Shi is not a fish in the pond. He is wild. I think you will be wronged. Wunyang was a filial daughter. She only had a good impression of Jiang Pingji. Since her father was not satisfied, she did not want him. Master Yuanjing let out a long sigh and stroked his daughter's long hair. On one hand, he felt that his daughter was like him. She had a good eye for people. Both Wei Ci and Lu Shi were outstanding. It was a pity that the former's heart belonged to someone else and he had a special destiny. The latter's gender was not suitable. He wanted to have a grandson and granddaughter. On the other hand, he felt that it was a pity. Master Yuanjing smiled kindly and promised. I will find you the best husband in the world. Wunyang was so shy that her cheeks turned red. After all, she was an unmarried little girl. She would definitely be shy when talking about her marriage. If I can't find the best, I won't get married in the future. I'll let you raise me for the rest of my life. Wunyang hugged Master Yuanjing's arm and acted like a spoiled child. She said, When I grow old at home, you can't dislike me, father. Master Yuanjing heaved a sigh of relief. It would be great if the matter could be resolved just like that. Although he could predict the fate of others, he could not predict the fate of those close to him. He didn't know where his daughter would end up in the future. The only thing he could do was to keep an eye on her and find her a real son-in-law. Jiang Pingji had bid farewell to her close friends a few days ago. She had also informed Master Yuanjing. With the fragrance of pear blossoms filling her sleeves, Jiang Pingji stepped into the orange afterglow as she returned home. There were many cars parked in front of the door. They were filled with the rare wood and furniture that Jiang Pingji had found from all over the place, clothes, jewelry, cosmetics, and land deeds. Not to mention the dowry prepared in Hejian. Jiang Pingji's dowry alone had already exceeded the value of a daughter of a concubine from an aristocratic family. Many of the items that were bought had been handled by Takshu. She knew the value of these dowries the best, so she felt a little indignant. What are you thinking about again? Your lips are curled up so high that you could hang a pot of vinegar on it. Jiang Pingji washed up and changed into her pajamas. She let down the long hair that she had combed during the day and tucked it behind her head. When she returned to the bedroom, Xianxia knelt down and tidied the mattress on the bed. She looked a little resentful and her tidying movements were big. This was very different from her usual self. Her reaction was a little strong, so Jiang Pingji asked casually. Xianxia tidied up the mattress swiftly. She glanced at where the booklet was placed and became even angrier. Your servant has tidied up the booklet for the dowry. I brought it here for you to have a look. Jiang Pingji bowed to Xianxia and smiled apologetically. I wonder what Lanting did today to make you so angry? Xianxia saw that she was fooling around and threw the corner of the blanket on the bed. She said unhappily, Lang Jun is so open-minded, but your servant is narrow-minded. Even the daughter of a concubine from an aristocratic family doesn't have such a generous dowry, let alone a daughter of a concubine who doesn't have a deep relationship with you. If it were in someone else's family, they would have emptied the storeroom. What will you do in the future? In today's era, the daughter of a concubine and the daughter of a concubine were two completely different concepts. The Lu residents gave such a generous dowry to the daughter of a concubine. It seemed like they were going to empty the storeroom. How would the son of the first wife who would inherit the family business in the future feel? Of course, from another perspective, it also reflected the generosity and benevolence of the Lu residents. They treated the daughter of a concubine so well. However, this kind of good wasn't something that everyone would buy. If it were an ordinary person, they would not be happy with what Xianxia said, even if they did not have any thoughts. Jiang Pingji smiled indifferently. When my sister gets married, the dowry and her family are what she relies on in her husband's family. Not to mention marrying into the royal family. She cannot be looked down upon. I'm her brother after all. Why should I be calculative with her? Xianxia sighed. Lang Jun is magnanimous, but I'm afraid she might not appreciate it. Although they had the same father, the daughter of a concubine and the daughter of a concubine were opposite in status. They rarely got along well. Jiang Pingji smiled without saying anything. Xianxia did not continue the topic. She lifted the blanket and was about to lie down. She said, We're leaving tomorrow. Have a good night's sleep. You don't have to keep watch tonight. Xianxia agreed with a smile. She still made the bed in the outer room. Jiang Pingji could only sigh when she heard the movement outside. That night, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. Master Yuanjing did not sleep until midnight. He tossed and turned, which woke his wife up. What's wrong with you tonight? He tossed and turned like he was baking pancakes. Did I wake you up because I moved too much? Master Yuanjing looked at his wife, who stood up with a cloak draped over her shoulders. He said apologetically, Go back to sleep. I'll stay in the study for the night. I'm restless tonight. I can't sleep. You think too much. His wife went back to sleep and mumbled vaguely. Master Yuanjing lifted the blanket carefully, put on the cloak and left the bedroom quietly. The moon was bright outside. He glanced at it, lowered his head and calculated. He frowned secretly. He did not feel sleepy until dawn. Instead, he sat in the study for the whole night. There was another person who had insomnia like him. The sky had just turned bright when the city gate opened. A group of carriages quietly drove out of the city gate. Jiang Pingji rode white and walked in front of the group. Behind her were more than 20 carriages filled with all kinds of dowry items. More than 100 guards guarded on both sides of the carriages. They held onto the broadswords at their waists tightly. They were wary of the movements on both sides of the road. They were afraid that they would encounter bandits or mobs. Wei Ci stood in the Shirley Pavilion with a cloak draped over his shoulders. He looked at Jiang Pingji's back as she left and sighed. Chapter 328. Langyi County was not far from Hejin County. Even though they met bandits along the way, they were killed by Jiang Pingji and her men before they could even get close to the carriages. Apart from these small disturbances, the rest of the journey was peaceful. It was even safer when they reached Hejin County. During the years that Jiang Pingji studied in Langyi County, the bandits near Hejin County did not have a good time. Those people were either caught and killed, or they were secretly recruited by Jiang Pingji's troops. Because of that, Hejin County had been peaceful for many years. Lang, let's go home. Xianxia stuck her head out of the curtain and saw the city on the ground. Her heart was filled with joy. Jiang Pingji held the reins and replied softly, Yes, let's go home. Hejian County was the first place she stayed after waking up in this world. Even though she did not have a sense of belonging, she felt that things were still the same, but people had changed when they met again after so many years. Let's go. After lamenting, the fleet of carriages was repaired. Jiang Pingji waved her whip and continued on the road. Because someone had informed them in advance, the Lus had already sent someone to wait outside the city. Jiang Pingji had excellent eyesight, so she naturally saw who was waiting at the front. Her lips curled into a sincere smile. She asked White to run a few steps and said to Su Ku, "Xiaoyu." Su Ku bowed to Jiang Pingji with a smile on his face. "Welcome, Langjun." Su Ku, who was already in his 20s, was a little longer than before. His shoulders were a lot broader and his face was more determined. The immaturity of a teenager had faded away, and he now had the calmness of a young man. Perhaps it was because he was in high spirits when he was in a good mood. Su Ku followed Jiang Pingji to study in Langyi early in the morning. Even though he was her study companion, he was no different from a normal student in Langyi. Sometimes he could even receive personal lessons from Master Yuanjing. 2 months ago, Jiang Pingji sent Su Ku back to Hejian to prepare for the marriage of the daughter of a mistress in the Lus. Judging by his appearance, it should have been done. Let's not talk about this. We've been on the road for so long and haven't eaten anything good. I'm starving. Jiang Pingji threw White's reins to the servant. Su Ku said, "Madam Hu has prepared a banquet at home. She's waiting for you." "Madam Hu? What about mother?" Jiang Pingji asked. Su Ku replied, "First, Madam has been busy with the wedding these days. She caught a cold this morning, so she asked Madam Hu to come out and welcome you." "I see." Jiang Pingji pointed at the fleet of carriages behind her and said, "Send someone to transport all these back to the manor and then count them according to the list. If there are any problems, you must inform me immediately. I'm so tired, I'm going back to the mansion to change my clothes." The pace of life in the ancient times was quite slow. Even though he hadn't been back for a few years, Hejian County was no different from what he remembered. When she saw that there were many beggars in ragged clothes in the city, she couldn't help but frown. Su Ku took the initiative to explain. 2 years ago and last year, the harvests in the counties around Hejian County were not good. Especially during the autumn harvest last year, there was a small locust plague. There was almost no harvest in the fields. If the commandery governor hadn't opened the granary and borrowed some food from the families, there would have been more victims. Hejian County is fine, but the situation in the other counties is even worse. Even though Jiang Pingji had helped Hejian County solve the problem of bandits and avoided man-made disasters, natural disasters could still make the people suffer. Jiang Pingji's expression darkened. She couldn't help but turn her head to look at the fleet of carriages behind her. The dowry was almost all bought by Jiang Pingji. She knew clearly how much money she had spent. It was only the dowry of the daughter of a concubine in the Lu Manor, but there were countless people around who still didn't have enough to eat. Such a sharp contrast made Jiang Pingji's heart tighten, and her expression became more and more unpleasant. "What about the tenant farmers outside?" Jiang Pingji asked about the farms owned by the Lu Manor. The first madam took out her own money and made the decision to exempt the tenant farmers from their commission. She also helped to pay for the grain tax and gave some money to each household. The other tenant farmers were homeless and had no food to eat, but the tenant farmers of the Lu Manor were not affected much. At least they didn't become refugees. They talked and soon arrived at the Lu Manor. The gatekeeper saw Jiang Pingji and didn't react for a long time. He then hurriedly shouted, "Second Langjun is back." Not long after, the old housekeeper trotted out. He couldn't help but burst into tears when he saw Jiang Pingji, who was already 15 years old. "Housekeeper, it's good to be home. Why are you crying?" "Stop crying. I'll go see my mother first." The housekeeper wiped his tears and said, "The first madam just took her medicine and is already asleep. Why don't you go wash up first?" "That's fine." Jiang Pingji went back to her yard. The servant girls had already prepared hot soup and clean clothes. The servants were still the same. The inside and outside of the yard were clean, as if the owner had never left. "Xuan Mei? Here." Jiang Pingji saw a slender figure. It was very familiar. She was stunned for a moment before she remembered who it was. "I heard from Xiaoyu that you are back today, and I made the decision to clean up your room." Xuan Mei's face was blushing. Even without makeup she still had a stunning beauty. She looked softer and more mature than before. Please forgive me, Lang Jun. Hearing that, Jiang Pingji turned to look at Su Ku. She clicked her tongue and said, so the good news is coming. Su Ku felt a little uncomfortable, so Sun Mei helped him out. I wanted to tell you about this when Lang Jun was free. There's no need to avoid this. He has been delaying you for so many years without giving you a response. Now that he finally relents, of course we have to get it done quickly. Jiang Pingji teased her. Xun Mei blushed. She folded her sleeves and left the room for the two of them. Seeing that Xun Mei left, Jiang Pingji asked, have you decided? Su Ku knew what she was referring to. He nodded and said, yes. Then don't let her down. Xun Mei is a good girl. To be honest, Jiang Pingji didn't have high hopes for Xun Mei and Su Ku. The latter was a swan. Sooner or later he would spread his wings and soar. Compared to him, Xun Mei was just an ordinary girl. It was hard to imagine if Su Ku would treat Xun Mei the same way when he became successful in the future. In Jiang Pingji's opinion, with Xun Mei's qualifications, she would be happier if she chose a stable and ordinary man. However, that was just her guess. What would happen in the future would depend on the two of them. Su Ku could hear the warning in Jiang Pingji's words. He couldn't help but say solemnly, I won't let her down. Jiang Pingji patted his shoulder. Remember what you said. Su Ku said, of course I will. Have a seat. I want to know about the changes in Hejian County these years. What's the situation with the troops now? Jiang Pingji stayed in Langyi County. She would receive news every once in a while, but because of the inconvenience of communication, the information was simplified and not detailed at all. Now that she finally came back, she naturally wanted to know more about it. Speaking of business, Su Ku sat up straight and started to organize his thoughts. Chapter 329. Jiang Pingji had not been in Hejian County for the past few years, but she had Qiguan Rang's help and Meng Hun's internal management. The chief of Hejian County secretly opened the door for convenience. The number of people had grown to more than 5,000. This was the result of Meng Hun's strict selection and careful selection. If he ignored the logistics situation and absorbed people to expand the troops, there would be at least 50,000 people. The bandits in the vicinity of Hejian County were basically wiped out. Under the leadership of Meng Hun, the troops swept the bandits in several nearby counties. With the seized goods, the grain that the upper division cultivated and the resources left by Jiang Pingji, the expenditure and income barely reached a balance. The increasing number of troops meant that they were a bigger target. If the chief of Hejian County became wary and suspicious, life would be difficult in the future. Jiang Pingji ordered Meng Hun to transfer most of the troops away. All of them were dispersed and disguised as refugees to Chongzhou. Now there are only 2,000 troops left in Hejian County. 1,303 are adults, and the other 607 are widowed women or girls. As for the female troops, I think it's better for Lang Jun to consider it carefully. Su Ku knew the purpose of Jiang Pingji's female troops. It was to make full use of every manpower and avoid wasting society's resources. However, in the current environment, the existence of the female troops was really awkward. Some men with dirty minds could not help but speculate that the female troops were actually used to satisfy their desires. Jiang Pingji raised her eyebrows. Why? Su Ku said, gossip is a fearful thing. The audience in the streaming room could only watch anxiously. Nugagai Chongfan, damn, don't be moved by Su Ku. Who said that girls are not as good as boys? Is it right that the social atmosphere is like this? Does it make the streamer comfortable to watch women in ancient times have such a low social status? Brainbow, streamer, look at me, look at me, look at me. What do you mean by gossip is a fearful thing? Isn't it just the social atmosphere? Could it be that the environment was correct? In ancient China, men had multiple wives and concubines. Now that society is more developed, bigamy is a crime. Tudoshigai Chongfan. But thinking about it, what Su Ku said makes sense. We have to think for the streamer. If she really implemented the female troops, it would be fine on a small scale, but if it was on a large scale, there would be a lot of pressure from the public. Zwizen Beishijing. I despise the comment above. So what if there is pressure from public opinion? There are so many viewers in the live broadcast room who are always scolding the host, saying that she is cruel or uncultured, cursing her ancestors, but have you ever seen her pay attention to those people who are spewing shit? Seeing this, many people came to a realization. The crux of the problem was not the pressure of public opinion, but whether Jiang Pingji was willing to bear the pressure. Shanhe Ilong, host, don't panic. We will always support you. Idao 88,000. TSK, the entire live broadcast room is filled with the aura of feminist cancer. You guys might as well advocate polygamy. Ancient society was like this. The social environment determined that women stayed at home and raised children. Men were the main productive force of society. Can you calm down a little and consider the environment of the host's dimension? Were they all sick? Due to the difference in opinion, the entire live broadcast room began their daily bickering. Of course, most of the people arguing were the new audience members. Many of the old audience members were still calm and did not worry that Jiang Pingji would be persuaded by Su Ku. Lao Ciji Lianming. By the way, do any of you remember the name and the real theme of the host's live streaming room? Huagua History de Quan. In the name of palace intrigue, it is actually a fight for the throne and the throne. Inueja Zhugachinmal. #mockery. So, what else is there to discuss about the formation of the female troops? The host Jiang Pingji is a woman. In the future, when she competes for the throne and becomes famous in the 9 prefectures, the status of women in society will definitely rise and they will be valued in a real sense. Jiang Pingji wants the competition to be smooth, so it is necessary to improve the status of women in society. Both of them were bound together to a certain extent. Only when the environment recognized the social value created by women could the title of the female emperor be well-deserved. Otherwise, even if the person sitting on the throne was a woman and the whole society was still male-dominated, she would only be a puppet. Seeing these comments, Jiang Pingji secretly laughed. The live broadcast room was a mix of good and bad people. Most of them were just onlookers, but after careful selection, there were still some clear-headed people. Note, but don't you think that when men and women fight, women are at a disadvantage? After all, brass. In a place like the battlefield, there was no need for manners. To deal with female soldiers, there must be some indecent methods. Hongshan Lingxi, #Picknose1. Look at what the person above said, as if the thing between a man's crotch is made of copper and iron. It doesn't hurt if you kick it. Everyone, I have decided on this matter. The female troops are determined to win. Jiang Pingji raised her hand to stop Su Ku from speaking. She said, right now our foundation is still too shallow. What's more, joining the troops will give them a place to settle down. Su Ku thought about it and it seemed to be true. Currently, most of the 670 female troops were orphans or girls abandoned by their families. If the troops were not willing to accept them, they would either starve to death by the roadside or be abducted by human traffickers. If they were abducted and sold, they would have a different ending. The unluckier ones would go directly to a shady place to sell their bodies. Those who were slightly better off would most likely be bought by some family and become a child bride or a rough maid. They would be recorded as slaves for the rest of their lives. When Jiang Pingji limited the purchase of rice, it alleviated the food shortage in Hejian County and indirectly reduced the number of refugees. However, the natural disasters and food shortage in the next few years still produced a large number of homeless refugees. Under the premise that the whole family fled, the probability of girls being abandoned or sold was greatly increased. This was the origin of the current female troops. Due to filial piety, the people could not abandon their parents. In order to continue the family line, boys could not be abandoned. Therefore, for the survival of the family, when there was no other choice, the wife and daughter could only reluctantly abandon. When there was a conflict between the two, the wife's value was naturally greater than the daughter's, so the girl was abandoned. Su Ku's heart suddenly softened when he thought of these details. He could only sigh. Lang Jun is kind. Invisibly, Jiang Pingji's image in Su Ku's heart rose a few notches. In order to protect the weak, she did not care about her reputation and was willing to bear the public's criticism and criticism. Was such an image not great? In fact, Jiang Pingji was not that great. Whether it was women or men, in her eyes, there was only one synonym: social production resources. Whoever wasted resources would find trouble with her. Chapter 330. Su Ku calmed himself down and moved the arrogant Jiang Pingji aside. He continued to report the situation. According to Longjuan's instructions, the female troops were handed over to Maiden Jiang. So when I returned to Hejian County, I first went to find her to understand the situation. The Maiden Jiang that Suke mentioned was Jiang Nongqin. Suke kept his distance from Jiang Nongqin. She was a woman that no one could provoke. He came to Hejian from Laiyi a few months ago. He wanted to find Jiang Nongqin to understand the situation of the troops. She was training the female troops. Her sparring partner was a tall and strong young man. He watched helplessly as she pinned him down and beat him up. It was really a beating. The young man was very big. The muscles on his arms were bulging. He looked very intimidating. However, his reaction was not as fast as Jiang Nongqin. He did not manage to grab the corner of her clothes. Instead, she grabbed his hair and pinned him to the ground. He pressed the sleeve knife against his neck. From the beginning to the end, it was rough and clean. It was too scary. This kind of woman. Nongqin is very hardworking. Jiang Pingji had not seen Jiang Nongqin for a few years, but it did not mean that she had forgotten her. She would occasionally send her training lists, illustrated training plans, fighting tips and some insights. Nongqin trained diligently every day. She would read and learn to read when she was free. Recently, she could even write letters to her and ask some simple questions. Jiang Pingji had always admired people who were willing to work hard to change the situation. Suke nodded in agreement. He had seen Jiang Nongqin's initial appearance. That was why he was surprised to see her change a few years later. Under Nongqin's management, the female troops had a vague scale. However, the average age of the adopted girls was too young. They could only carry out very basic training and help with some trivial matters. Those who were old enough and too weak would cry with just a little training. Nongqin could not be bothered to be gentle with such people. Jiang Pingji smiled. How did she deal with it? Suke's expression was strange. He said, Maiden Jiang told the female troops that they could either fight and kill here or go to the brothel to serve the men. Some people did not believe it. Jiang Nongqin mentioned it. She killed the chicken to warn the monkey. She directly sent someone to pick them up and told them where to sell them. After this, no one dared to cause trouble anymore. These girls were born in poor families and were not spoiled girls. After a few days, they saw that Nongqin was not soft-hearted at all. Naturally, they did not dare to say anything. They trained and learned to read together. Gradually, they realized that Nongqin was not trying to harm them, so they gradually became loyal to her. As for the older women, Nongqin arranged for them to wash, sew and cook. At this time there was a question in the livestream room. De Zhuangzhu Furen, streamer, I think you can also teach them emergency treatment. The death rate on the ancient battlefield was very high. Most people did not die on the spot, but they did not receive emergency treatment and proper care after the battle. Lao Ciji Lianming, that's true. If the female troops want to gain the recognition of the outside world, they must take out a real hammer to shut those people up. At the very least, the host's subordinates must first acknowledge the meaning of their existence. If they could not only fight but also treat wounds and treat soldiers, they would definitely be able to stop a lot of rumors. No matter what the outside world says, the internal power of the host must be harmonious. Jiang Pingji did not ignore these suggestions. Her fingers gently tapped on the table in front of her. Since she asked Nongqin to adopt those orphans and form a female troop, she naturally had a series of measures and plans in mind. The suggestions of the audience in the livestream room were very feasible. But Jiang Pingji frowned. Although she had learned first aid, most of those methods were not suitable for ancient times. Streamer V. Do you have books on battlefield first aid? Tang roasted chestnuts. Yes, yes, yes. My sister majored in nursing. I will find her books for you later. Wei Xian Yang Yang Jiawa. Go away, don't fight with me. I majored in nursing and have 5 years of experience in the emergency department. Note, nonsense, I am the head nurse of the emergency department. Who dares to fight with me? In the past few years, Jiang Pingji spent most of her energy on learning, but she did not relax her suppression and testing of the system. After her efforts and the gradual defeat of the system, the level of the livestream room was upgraded to level 4, and the upper limit of viewers increased to 150,000. 150,000 viewers. Even if they were all onlookers, there was no lack of talents from all walks of life. Jiang Pingji asked for some nursing knowledge. Naturally, the number of viewers who responded was like a school of carps crossing the river. She listened attentively to Suke's summary report and sorted out the general information in her mind. Is there any news from Chongzhou? Jiang Pingji muttered to herself for a while and asked about news from Chongzhou. Back then she urged Lu Shi to become the magistrate of Chongzhou because she had her eyes on that place. Because the 3 tribes of the northern borderline were eyeing it covetously, Dongqing had transferred a batch of soldiers away to support Nanxing. Lu Shi had a legitimate reason to recruit troops and buy horses. He called it protecting the border. Even if the emperor of Dongqing and the northern borderline were in love, he could not reject his reason. Master sent news a few days ago that everything is fine. Yes, father is in Chongzhou, so I am not very worried. Jiang Pingji knew how rich the second branch of the Lu family was. They could build at least an army of 20,000 in Chongzhou. Coupled with her meticulously trained troops, it was not too shabby. Suke looked down. He could vaguely guess Jiang Pingji's intentions. According to Ku's understanding, now that all the princes have come of age, the situation of the fight for the throne is getting more and more serious. The relatives and the eunuchs have temporarily joined hands, stirring up the entire imperial court. Prince Changshu is full of ambition. I'm afraid he will make a big move next. Why don't you? Jiang Pingji shook her head. We can't. If we do that, it will benefit the north borderline that has been coveting it for a long time. She understood what Suke meant. He wanted to take advantage of the chaos in the court and Dongqing's people's misery to gain the upper hand and gather troops to occupy a piece of land. Of course, the bird that sticks out gets shot first. Naturally, she had to wait for the other forces to be unable to hold back and attract the firepower first. Then she would attack from behind. If that was the case, it would be equivalent to internal strife in Dongqing, allowing the north borderline to reap the benefits. Suke asked, does Lang Jun want to deal with Beijiang first? Let them fight for the hinterland of Dongqing first. Jiang Pingji curled her lips and said, defending against the foreign clans is a righteous cause. A fight between brothers and relatives and an outsider coming over to snatch something definitely had a different meaning. The 3 tribes of the northern borderline were outsiders. Beijiang seems difficult to deal with, but are the local forces of Dongqing really that easy to deal with? The relationship between the princes, the emperor and the feudal vassals is at daggers drawn. Including the forces supported by other aristocratic families, there will be a chaotic battle within Dongqing. Rather than fighting with them, it's better to wait for them to finish snatching and then deal with them. Before that, we should first take down the 3 tribes of the northern borderline and occupy their horse farms. But this Beijiang, Dongqing has been fighting with them for many years, but we still can't do anything to them. Suke had also considered this point, but single-handedly challenging the north borderline was equivalent to dealing with a country. How could Chongzhou, a single prefecture, achieve this? Chapter 331. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy and you will never be defeated. The factor that determined the outcome of a war was not only the military strength of the 2 parties, but also the battle of information between the 2 parties. Why were strategists so highly regarded in ancient times? That was the key. Those who were good at strategizing could accurately predict the enemy's mind, grasp the initiative, and determine victory from 1,000 miles away, even with scant information. In Jiang Pingji's opinion, these people not only had abnormally intelligent brains, but their analysis and deduction of the surrounding situation were also impressive. Others had only just seen the beginning, but their brains had already deduced the ending. That was the difference between ordinary people and strategists. But what if there was detailed, accurate, and real-time information? Even ordinary people could see some clues, and strategists were like tigers that had grown wings. Therefore, if Jiang Pingji wanted to use Chongzhou as a foundation and then plot to conquer the northern borderline, she had to understand all aspects of the northern borderline in detail. I will personally write a letter to my father and ask him to send people to collect information about the northern borderline in advance. Jiang Pingji said, the royal family of the northern borderline and Dongqing have been united by marriage for almost 3 years. It's long past the honeymoon period. Next, it's time to reveal the true intentions. The princess of the northern borderline and Yaina married into the royal family of Dongqing. She did not have any good intentions. Jiang Pingji was a witness to how she fooled around with the 4th prince, Wu Majun, under the rockery before marriage. If she sincerely wanted to unite by marriage and ease the relationship between the two countries, would she have cheated on her future brother-in-law? She married the second prince and became his princess consort. She had stirred up a lot of trouble over the years. It was a pity that the residence of the Count of Zhenbei became the biggest cannon fodder. Princess Xianxia was indeed the pearl of the three tribes of the northern borderline. She was quite intelligent. After becoming the daughter-in-law of the royal family, she quickly grasped the position of the second prince, whose mother's family did not have a high status. She coaxed him into submission and turned him into her mouthpiece in the Dongqing court. When Nanxing borrowed troops from Dongqing to repel the enemy, the second prince followed Princess Xianxia's plan and recommended the residence of the Count of Zhenbei. Their reasons were also very legitimate and even irrefutable. The descendants of the Count of Zhenbei were good at war, and the old duke was a general who had never lost a battle. If they sent the elite troops of the Count of Zhenbei to help Nanxing repel the enemy, not only could it show Dongqing's sincerity towards Nanxing, but it could also promote the might of Dongqing in front of other countries. There was nothing wrong with recommending the residence of the Count of Zhenbei. The problem was that the person who prepared the supplies was the second prince, and the military supervisor was a eunuch who had a deep grudge against the Count of Zhenbei. The soldiers were fighting at the front lines, but the rations at the rear could not be supplied. The reinforcements who were supposed to cooperate with the operation were always late. The injured soldiers did not receive the care they deserved, and there was often a shortage of rations and horses. The elites of the residents of Northern Marquis were tormented by such a sinister little trick, causing them to be extremely exhausted. In the last battle, the military intelligence was delayed and 7 or 8 out of 10 elites were lost. The Count of Zhenbei, who had suffered a great loss, was not only reprimanded, but also demoted and stripped of the commander's seal. Without the elite troops to rely on, and the commander's seal that even the officials were afraid of was taken away, the current residence of the Count of Zhenbei was already at the edge of a cliff in imminent danger. Although it would fall at any time, it would be smashed to pieces. If it weren't for the fact that the officials were afraid of their reputation, the residence of Count Zhenbei would have completely disappeared from Dongqing. From this point of view, it seemed that Princess Xianxia had done nothing, but Jiang Pingji did not underestimate her. The princess's contribution to the current situation in Dongqing's court was indispensable. Su Ku furrowed his brows, leaving a few shallow wrinkles. The real intention is revealed? Jiang Pingji smiled coldly. Isn't it? Most of the elites of the Count of Zhenbei have died in the battlefield of Nanxing, which is equivalent to cutting off 30 to 40% of Dongqing's military strength. The remaining military strength is concentrated in the hands of the officials, the Meng family of Zhangzhou and Prince Changshu. The three of them are not of one mind. Langjun is right. Lao Ai has misunderstood. Su Ku sighed and raised his hand to rub his forehead. He followed Jiang Pingji's train of thought and analyzed. There are many internal conflicts in Dongqing. If there is a scuffle, the three tribes of the northern borderline can reap the benefits. At the same time, there is the threat from the south. Back then, the 4 countries rushed to Nanxing's aid. The 4 factions of Nanman took the opportunity to negotiate for peace and won 2 to 3 years of recuperation. Now that they have recovered, Nanxing ceded land to seek peace and lost a large piece of land. They have yet to catch their breath. How can they withstand the strong invasion of the 4 factions of Nanman? The 4 factions of Nanman had enough recuperation. Now that they had a strong army and strong horses, Nanxing was still struggling at death's door. The destruction of the country was close at hand. If Nanxing fell, Dongqing would definitely face a pincer attack from the 3 tribes of the northern borderline and the 4 factions of Nanman. There were many external threats and endless internal troubles. With such a situation, anyone could imagine that Dongqing would be the next Nanxing. It was a dead end with almost no solution, but Jiang Pingji wanted to find a way out of it. This is our chance, Xiaoyu, Jiang Pingji said calmly. Success or failure depends on this. Who said that the 3 tribes of the northern borderline would reap the benefits in the end? To open up the situation, the only way was to destroy the 3 tribes of the northern borderline. This was the only way out. It had to be said that this idea was extremely bold, but since Jiang Pingji said it, she naturally had the confidence to accomplish it. The hinterland of Dongqing was mostly flat and suitable for cavalry battles. Overall, it was easy to attack and hard to defend. The 3 tribes of the northern borderline had many horse farms and cavalry. Once Chongzhou fell, the cavalry of the 3 tribes of the northern borderline would rush into Dongqing. Based on the current situation, Dongqing would have almost no power to resist. If Jiang Pingji wanted to conquer the world, the 3 tribes of the northern borderline would be the best springboard. Conquer the northern borderline, destroy Dongqing, resist Nanman, and even destroy Nanman, then contend with the other 3 countries. To achieve this goal, she still needed an extremely important chess piece. This chess piece must have the ability to help her restrain the nail that the 3 tribes of the northern borderline had planted in Dongqing, Princess Yaina. Everything is ready. The only thing left is the wedding of the 4th prince, Wuma Jun. Jiang Pingji smiled mysteriously, but Suke did not understand. What did this have to do with the wedding of the 4th prince, Wuma Jun? Just as he was about to speak, Jiang Pingji's eyes turned cold, causing him to subconsciously swallow the words in his throat. After a while, footsteps were heard from outside. Langjun, everything is ready. Taksha's gentle voice came from outside the door. Suke silently raised his eyebrows at Jiang Pingji and gave her a look. His Langjun was really amazing. The footsteps were so far away but she could actually hear them. Yes, I'm tired. Go and prepare some hot soup and clean clothes. I want to take a bath later. Taksha bowed and said meekly, yes. Jiang Pingji's eyes darkened. She stood up and took a box from the shelf in the study. Let's stop here. Next, it's time for private matters. Jiang Pingji pushed the box in front of Suku and gestured for him to open it. Suku opened it according to her instructions. There was no gold, silver, or jewelry in it. There was nothing valuable either. There were only 2 dark yellow bamboo slips. Chapter 332. Suke took it out with trembling hands. There seemed to be an undercurrent under his calm expression. He almost couldn't hold back the trembling in his heart. His eyes were filled with tears. Jiang Pingji said lightly, this is the contract between you and Xuanmei. Take it as a wedding gift. According to the rules of the ancient times, the children of slaves were still slaves. They were born as slaves and were even worse than ordinary people. Jiang Pingji didn't need to use the contract to control them. Their existence would also become their weakness. It was better to take the opportunity to solve it. Return the contract, get rid of the slave status and be considered good people from now on. I have never regarded you as a servant of the Liu family. This can be seen from the fact that I allowed you to call yourself, instead of, slave, all these years. Xuanmei is my personal maid but I've always treated her like my own sister. We're not family but we're closer than family. Suku, I will be happy to see you marry her. However, if you become successful in the future, don't forget the relationship between you and her when you were young. Suku calmed himself down and suppressed the surging emotions in his heart. He bowed deeply to thank her. I will not forget today's promise. Jiang Pingji had warned him several times. How could Suku not understand her attitude of protecting Xuanmei? With this guarantee, Jiang Pingji reluctantly chose to believe him. However, the audience in the streaming room was worried. Lao Ciji Lianming, #rubface. I feel that Suku has set up a big flag. Yinuagia Zhuga Qinmal. I hope it won't be a slap in the face but it's a bit dirty. Matrimonial consulting lawyer. Sigh. To be honest, based on my personal work experience, I don't think they will succeed. If Suku was placed in the modern world he would be a future rich and handsome man with IQ, looks and the ability to work. Xuanmei was an ordinary girl with looks but average other conditions. Although they were a good match, their potential was different. Their social status in the future would also be different. Boji and Broom, it can't be that different. Xuanmei's backer is the streamer. Suka dares to do this? Lao Ciji Lianming, the streamer's temper is right. She is protective but she has her principles. If Sun Mei was self-reliant, the host would definitely be happy to help her. But Sun Mei looked like a conservative ancient woman who was docile and obedient. If Suku really let her down in the future she would probably choose to endure it instead of exploding. Not to mention, it wouldn't be considered as letting her down. After all, in the ancient era one man had many concubines and it was legal to have concubines. Jiang Pingji did not miss out on these comments. After a long time she posted a bullet screen. Host V. I trust Xuanmei and Suku. As for their marriage it was better to give their blessings first. That's right. Only then did the livestream viewers react. She hadn't even gotten married yet and they were already saying bad things here. This wasn't a good sign. As a result, the screen in the live broadcast room exploded, and all kinds of large rewards fell from the sky. Small rewards like lollipops, lovers' hearts and blue and white bounties were basically bundled together. Jiang Pingji took a peek at the backstage and saw the notification of rewards appearing like flowing water. Viewer, Inhumane Tycoon, rewarded 99 groups of 1314 lollipops. Viewer, Don't Lack Money, rewarded 666 groups of 520 lovers' hearts. Viewer, Love Suku the most rewarded 1314 blue and white bounties. Further down there were dazzling blue enchantresses, kidney apples and other reward props. Apart from these small rewards, the large rewards came in one after another, almost drowning the backstage of the livestream. Viewer, Doryman, rewarded 99 groups of a pair for a lifetime, wishing Suku a happy wedding. Viewer, Shirley Hongzhuang rewarded 99 luxurious private yachts, wishing Suku and his wife a happy marriage. Viewer, Lao Ciji Lianming rewarded 99 luxurious private jets, wishing Suku and his wife a happy birth. A pair for a lifetime, luxurious private yachts and luxurious private jets were all reward props of the livestream system. The former was worth 999 popularity points, and the latter two were worth 1,000 popularity points. What did it mean to reward 99 groups of such valuable reward props in one go? Jiang Pingji secretly rolled her eyes. These people usually kept a low profile, but when it was time to join in the fun, they competed with each other. This wave of rewards lasted for a full half an hour. Jiang Pingji counted the points of popularity earned from rewards alone, which was close to 2.6 million. After splitting the points with the system, Zhou the exploiter, Jiang Pingji had almost 1.29 million points of popularity in her account. Looking at the points backstage, Jiang Pingji secretly raised her eyebrows. Just as the system said, the more viewers there were in the livestream, the easier it was to obtain popularity points. However, how long could the popularity points the system obtained last time be enough to support its activities? The livestream was already at level 4, which meant that the system needed more popularity points to maintain its daily operation. In the past few years, she had figured out the system's appetite and controlling it was getting easier and easier. It was just a bunch of copied data. How could it escape her grasp? Host V, you're so generous? Is this considered generous? The audience in the live stream snorted. The streamer had never seen the world. There were many rich people in other live streams and their actions were considered generous. They rewarded without saying a word. If Jiang Pingji was willing to act cute and call them brothers and uncles, the rewards would be even more. Even if she did not sell her body, there would be many rich people fighting to spend money on her. This was called a child who cried and screamed would get milk. The streamer never cried or made a fuss. She was a clear stream in the livestream world. Host V, it seems that I have to urge Xuanmei and Suku to finish their business as soon as possible so that they can have a baby. The audience, they were stunned for a moment, not understanding what Jiang Pingji was referring to. Very quickly, they realized that the unscrupulous streamer was already thinking about the money for the baby's milk powder and the baby's birthday party. No, they seemed to have forgotten something. Could Suku and Xuanmei receive the gift of the props rewarded to the streamer? The answer was definitely no. Jiang Pingji would not exchange the popularity points for real money because the system did not support it. However, as the head of the family, Jiang Pingji would naturally prepare a generous dowry for Xuanmei so that she could have a grand wedding. As for Suku, she would first give him a few years' salary in advance and organize a grand wedding. Compared to the complicated weddings of rich and powerful families, the weddings of ordinary people were much simpler. Suku and Xuanmei's marriage was approved by the head of the family. Next they could enter the main topic. However, Suku was a scholar and valued etiquette very much. Since it was a legal marriage, even if everything was simple, the 3 letters and 6 etiquettes could not be omitted. This matter was handed over to Suku's only elder, his widowed aunt, to handle. Xuanmei had stayed in Hejian to take care of Suku's aunt for many years. She had long regarded her as her own daughter, so she naturally paid attention to this matter. Jiang Pingji turned off the live stream and took a bath to her heart's content. Just as she put on her pajamas, the footsteps of a maid came from outside. Langjun, the dowry that Chongzhou prepared is here. Jiang Pingji smiled after hearing that. Chapter 333. A low-key and simple carriage stopped at the corner gate of the Lu residence. Lady Hui, we've arrived at the Lu residence. The servant girl's gentle voice came from outside the carriage, pulling Hui Jun back from her daydream. She pursed her lips and hid the excess expression on her face. She revealed the perfect smile that she had trained for years and got off the carriage. In front of her was a completely unfamiliar mansion. If it had been a few years ago, she would still have been a lowly prostitute who could be humiliated by anyone. He could have any man for a copper coin. She would have been chased away and insulted by the servants if she had even gone a little closer, not to mention entering such a luxurious mansion. Lady Hui, the servant girl called out. I'm fine. I'm just overjoyed at the thought of seeing Langjun soon. The current Hui Jun smiled shyly. She pressed down the heavy curtain and covered her entire face. Then she handed her hand to the servant girl and let her enter the corner gate. She knew that she was the dowry of the daughter of a concubine in the Lu residence, but she only looked at the energy and investment that the Lu residence had invested in her over the years. Her food, clothing, and shelter were all luxurious. Someone even personally taught her how to read and write, taught her how to evaluate paintings and poems, and told her the rules and taboos among the aristocratic families. Therefore, she did not think that she would only be a dowry who helped others win the favor of her husband. She kept a low profile all the way to a courtyard. Hui Jun saw the second legitimate son of the Lu residence, whom she had met a few years ago. Jiang Pingji was also stunned when she saw Hui Jun. Even she did not expect that a Ko who had been carefully raised for a few years would grow into such a peerless beauty. Her hair was as black as ink, her eyebrows were lightly swept, and the jade hairpin in her hair swayed rhythmically. She was beautiful. It seemed that even such boring swaying had become meaningful. She walked with a myriad of postures. Her graceful appearance was like a green willow that had just sprouted in the warm spring. It was unforgettable. She was no longer thin, pitiful, humble, and cowardly. Instead, she was gentle, tranquil, and elegant. A girl changes 18 times between womanhood and womanhood. The saying is true. Jiang Pingji looked at Hui Jun with a gaze that admired a beauty. She was indeed a rare beauty. She was not beautiful enough to captivate birds and beasts, but she could still topple a city. Hui Jun tried her best to stop her spine and used everything she had learned over the years. Although she looked calm on the surface, her heart was pounding like thunder. Her palms were sweaty and her back was stuffy. Her breathing quickened. It was as if the air had become thin when she saw Jiang Pingji for the first time. Hui Jun leisurely sat down and revealed her most perfect smile. She bowed in a textbook manner. Servant Hui Jun greets Langjun. Don't be so nervous. Jiang Pingji laughed involuntarily. Hui Jun's demeanor made her feel like she was the dean, while Hui Jun was a nervous student waiting to be inspected. You've done very well all these years. The promise I made to you all those years ago still stands. Hui Jun secretly heaved a sigh of relief. Only now did she realize that her back was drenched in sweat. Since that's the case, can Langjun tell Hui Jun what you want me to do? She looked at Jiang Pingji with her clear eyes. Even though the years had worn away the timidity in her bones, she always felt ashamed of her inferiority in front of Jiang Pingji. She wished she could bury herself in the ground so that Jiang Pingji would never see her again. Jiang Pingji tapped on the table. The sound was especially obvious in the quiet room. Will you be the demoness who brings disaster to the country? The demoness who brings disaster to the country? Hui Jun was stunned. Before coming to the Lu residence, countless thoughts had popped up in her mind. But no matter how she guessed, she could not even get close to the truth. Hui Jun smiled bitterly. All the women in the world, even if I'm as impure as I am, will not voluntarily admit that my appearance is inferior to others. However, the demoness who brings disaster to the country. I have some good looks, but I don't have the confidence to compare to the 3,000 beauties in the inner court of the palace. Jiang Pingji nodded. That's true. Hui Jun was indeed very beautiful, but this kind of beauty belonged to the human world. If one worked hard, one could find a beauty who could compare to her. When Hui Jun heard this, her heart felt as if it had been pricked by a needle. It hurt faintly. At that moment she heard Jiang Pingji say, But I'm asking if you are willing to be the demoness who brings disaster to the country, not anything else. Huijun hurriedly replied, "Of course I am willing." Perhaps it was because she had been humiliated since she was young and had tasted sorrow, but Huijun had always longed for someone to save her from this sea of suffering. The person in front of her had done it. That year she had personally killed the ruffians who had bullied her in the mass grave. She had secretly made up her mind. Even if she had to go through a mountain of knives or a sea of flames, she would not hesitate to give her life to the person in front of her if he asked. One had to know how to be satisfied and grateful. Huijun had retained this sincere heart. She understood that after leaving the slums she had stolen every day. How many prostitutes had died miserably? Even on their deathbed they were barely clothed and bystanders had to cover their noses when they saw their corpses. She was the only one who had enjoyed so many years of glory and wealth. Perhaps she could go one step further in the future. Why would she not be satisfied? As soon as she finished speaking, she heard the youth in front of her say to her, "If that's the case, I'll give you some good fortune." Huijun lowered her head and bowed. Jiang Pingji was speechless again. It's not that easy to be the demoness who brings disaster to the country. You might even face the situation of being reviled by the people of the world, so consider carefully. Huijun shook her head and said, "Longjuan's words are wrong. So what if I'm the demoness who brings disaster to the country? Isn't that the noblest woman in the world? Everything in the world is at your fingertips. You can live freely and not be trampled on and humiliated by others. You can even make those who were once high and mighty bow or even break their backs. How is that not good? As for what happens to one's reputation after death, one is already dead. Who cares about what happens after death? So what if the people of the world reviled her? Throughout history, although no femme fatale could end well, no one had the ability to teach them a lesson. No matter how they died, they enjoyed glory and wealth while they were alive." Jiang Pingji choked on Huijun's words. She did not expect Huijun to think that way. It's naturally the best that you can think that way. Jiang Pingji raised her hand and pointed at the medicine on the table that was still steaming. "Drink it." Huijun got up and took 2 small steps. Without asking what the medicine was, she raised her hand and picked up the bowl of black, bitter and unpleasant medicine. She tilted her slender and fair neck and gulped it down. Jiang Pingji passed her the candied fruit. She accepted it readily and silently kept it in her mouth. When the bitter taste in her mouth was suppressed, she spoke timidly. "Your servant has a wish. Can you fulfill it?" Thinking of her own request, she felt that her tongue was about to be tied. "Sure." Jiang Pingji nodded and agreed. "Langjun, can you hug me?" she blurted out. Her heart was faintly filled with hope and apprehension. Jiang Pingji looked into Huijun's eyes and suddenly understood. She opened her arms slightly. Chapter 334. Jiang Pingji maintained her posture and patted her back until the breath in her arms gradually calmed down. The medicine that Huijun had just drunk was not poison, but a bowl of thick sleeping medicine. Silly girl. She sighed softly and put one hand under Huijun's armpit and the other under her legs. She lifted her up easily. "Takshu, no one is allowed to come near the courtyard without my orders." Takshu secretly glanced at the sleeping Huijun. Her expression froze for a moment, then disappeared as if it had never appeared. "Your servant understands." She bowed and retreated, gently closing the door of the bedroom. Jiang Pingji turned around and walked into the bedroom. She lifted the thin blanket on the bed and placed the sleeping Huijun on it. With a thought, the back end of the system opened the package. There were a few strange cards that shone brightly in color. The system felt vaguely uneasy, but it could not stop Jiang Pingji at all. It could only test her nervously. It deliberately said in a relaxed tone, "Host, what are you doing?" Jiang Pingji did not even frown this time. She just took out all the cards stored in the package and placed them on the table according to the order in which they were obtained. Her slender fingers brushed across the surface of each card, and her eyes revealed a dangerous message. She picked up a card, and the golden words of introduction appeared automatically. XX Masterpiece. Winding corridor of 9 turns. Wonderful and unpredictable. You deserve it. No man will be able to live without your charm. Men will be intoxicated and unable to extricate themselves. You will truly have a harem of 3,000 beauties and 3,000 adoration. From then on, the king will not attend morning court. Jiang Pingji glanced at it with a face full of disdain, but she still picked it out. Easy pregnancy pill. The new voice of a young phoenix, Lin Ji, shows auspiciousness. Once chosen by the king's side, 3,000 adoration will gather, but flowers will not bloom for 100 days. One can only sigh that beauties age quickly and men's hearts are fickle. If you have a son by your side, you will definitely stand at the top of the harem and laugh at the flowers competing for beauty. This card was not very useful at the moment. After Jiang Pingji thought about it, she put it away and picked up the third card. Full breasts, wrists raised high, body turned, and breasts covered with silk clothes. A full cleavage is one of a woman's most powerful weapons. Having an impressive chest is undoubtedly a powerful bargaining chip. Other people conquer the world, you conquer the man who can conquer the world. The fourth card. Willow slender waist, slender and enchanting. A waist that can't even be grasped is every woman's dream. P.S. When this card is used together with full breasts, it will have a miraculous effect and bring men a visual impact. The fourth card had appeared twice. The first time was when the system gave out the reward for the mission, saving Meng Liang. But Jiang Pingji didn't care about the system at that time, so she killed Meng Liang and failed the mission. Later, in the semi-interactive livestream mode, Jiang Pingji started the livestream mission. After completing the mission, she drew a card from the silver chest. The system lived up to its reputation as a harem drama streaming system. It understood the essence of the appearance association, and most of the rewards it gave were to improve one's appearance. Apart from that, there were also quite a number of limb correction devices such as this one. Straight jade legs, long and slender, perfect and flawless. Another example, snow white wrist, slender like a willow, elegant and alluring. Not only did it improve one's appearance, but it also enhanced one's temperament and charm. Cold and aloof, seductive to the bone. After using it, one will have the cold and elegant temperament and natural charm of the goddess of the ninth heaven. Jiang Pingji was also confused by the description of the card. Was her language bad or was the system contradicting itself? Actually, that was what the system wanted to express. A cold and aloof fairy in front of others but a slutty woman in bed? But that was not the main point. Jiang Pingji had always thought that it was the most shameless of all the cards. Eternal Virgin. Use this card and you will have the firmness of a virgin. When used together with XX Masterpiece, both of them will have a qualitative improvement, allowing a man to enjoy eternal happiness. The Emperor loves color. A moment of freshness won't make him linger on you. Only by being fresh all the time can his heart and body be attached to you, so that the Emperor's favor in the harem will never fade. Other than that, there were other cards with different functions. For example, she had delicate snow-white skin, silky black hair, light pink fingernails, cherry blossom-colored lips, mesmerizing eyes, long and thick eyelashes like a small fan, slender and sensitive neck. Jiang Pingji did not slack off in the past few years. She did live streaming when she needed to, and she did it in whatever mode she needed to. With such diligent work, she gradually accumulated a large pile of cards over the years. At the beginning, the rewards given by the system were more expensive. As time went on, the cards that were drawn became more and more ordinary. Basically, they only modified and optimized parts of the body while some increased some charm. Jiang Pingji did not expose the system and pretended that she did not know. System, you're so smart. Why can't you guess what I'm going to do? Jiang Pingji sneered coldly and mocked. We've been tied together for almost 4 years. Don't you know me well enough after such a long time? Do you think I'll use these cards on myself? Of course, I'm not taking them out to admire the contents. Guess what I'm going to do? System. It did not dare to guess. Jiang Pingji said, I remember I asked you before. These cards do not take effect instantly. No matter how powerful the system was, it could not complete plastic surgery for someone in an instant. According to Jiang Pingji's knowledge, the effects of all cards were slowly modified based on the user's foundation. The length of the modification depended on the final effect. For example, temperament modification, most of them only required 1 or 2 days. Others required 10 days to half a month. The system did not want to say anything, but Jiang Pingji's actions made it anxious. Host, using items produced by the system on someone other than the host is against the relevant regulations of the system. Jiang Pingji sneered coldly and threw out a card. The system looked at it and was suddenly speechless. The content of the card was a little ridiculous. Yang Baoxiang, natural body fragrance. When a man smells it, his sexual desire will increase greatly. It can increase the pleasure of a couple's bedroom and make a man not impotent for a long time. The card used a woman's body as a carrier, but the one who benefited in the end was the man. Strictly speaking, it was considered to be used by someone other than the host. Jiang Pingji carefully studied the original contract. There was no such clause. The system's words could deceive unfamiliar people, but to deceive her? The system tolerated it and finally chose to curl up. It was powerless to stop Jiang Pingji's actions. Chapter 335. Huijuan's face quickly turned red. She furrowed her brows as if she was enduring great pain. She grabbed Jiang Pingji's sleeves with both hands and curled up her body like a prawn. Her skin was covered with a thin layer of sweat. She looked very helpless and pitiful. One could not help but feel pity for her. Jiang Pingji blinked her eyes. Her mind, which had yet to waver, calmed down again. The system said, "Host, you're digging your own grave. You've seen her at her worst. Aren't you afraid that she'll harm you once she gains power? You have to know that some people in this world deserve to be trusted and some don't." Jiang Pingji curled her lips and said firmly, "It's obvious that Huijun has the right to be trusted by me. I won't doubt someone I trust unless she betrays me." It was not an easy task to plot against Jiang Pingji. You saying such naive words only proves that you don't understand people's hearts well enough. The system said coldly, "Human nature is very complicated. The person in front of you is obviously not someone of noble character and unquestionable integrity. Host, you did pull her out from the lowest point of her life. She will indeed be grateful to you and want to repay you with her body. But once she gets to a higher place, this experience will be a dark history that she needs to erase." Jiang Pingji laughed mockingly. "You're a system and you want to teach me what human nature is?" The system choked hard at her words. If it had an expression, its face would be as black as ink and as gloomy as water. After a while, the system spoke in a strange tone. "Actually, host, you shouldn't have satisfied her request just now. She already knows your gender." Jiang Pingji asked, "Why?" The system said, "According to the analysis of the system's data, this woman adores you and admires you. If you didn't expose your gender, she would still be immersed in it. Many facts have proven that women who have a place to return to are far easier to control than women who have no attachments. If she really falls in love with you, she'll work for you for free. Aren't you afraid that she'll turn evil and take the opportunity to stab you?" This time Jiang Pingji laughed. She thought she was shameless enough, but she didn't expect the system's true colors to be so hateful. "I think you seem to have misunderstood." Jiang Pingji shook her finger and said seriously, "First of all, it's a fair deal between me and Huijun. I'll give her glory and wealth and help her pave the way to the top. In return, she'll work for me and help me achieve my goals. It's only fair. If he used fake feelings to deceive and restrain her, it would be considered as emotional fraud. In my opinion, this is a method that only scum would choose." The system said that Huijun was in love with her and Jiang Pingji could tell. It was precisely because of this that she agreed to Huijun's request in order to sever her thoughts. It would have been fine if he didn't know about it. However, he clearly knew that Huijun was interested in him, yet he pretended not to know about it. He allowed the other party to carry the misunderstanding and become the bride of the Lu residence's younger sister's concubine. According to the plan, he would walk the path of a demoness who brings disaster to the country. If he wasn't scum, then what was he? Jiang Pingji didn't have any moral values, but she couldn't bring herself to bully the feelings of the weak. On the other hand, the system that made such a suggestion, that's all you've got. There was nothing to fear. Huijun slept soundly for the entire night, almost dreamless until daybreak. Ever since she could remember, she didn't know that she could sleep so peacefully and so relaxed. She got up in a daze, and the unfamiliar blanket covering her slid down as she moved. She couldn't help but be startled. Looking around, she realized that the furnishings were very clean and neat, and there was a faint fragrance of incense in the air. It didn't look like a lady's boudoir at all. "Are you awake, miss?" An unfamiliar female voice came from outside the room. Huijun pursed her lips and said cautiously, "Yes." She had already guessed who the room belonged to. Taksha pushed the door open and a few maids followed behind her. They carried copper basins, towels and other things and silently helped Huijun wash up. "Miss, you're really pretty." One of the maids was stunned and couldn't help but murmur. There was a hint of infatuation in her eyes. Huijun frowned, feeling puzzled. She knew that she was pretty, but it shouldn't be to the extent that the servants of the Lu residence would be so dazed, right? Looking at the lady in the mirror, Huijun's eyes were filled with hesitation. Her face was still the same and her facial features were still the same, but for some reason, there was something more than the day before that made her even more bewitching. After washing up, Huijun secretly calculated in her heart, feeling a little apprehensive. "Your servant offended you yesterday, Langjun. Please forgive me." When Huijun appeared on the screen of the streaming room, Jiang Pingji seemed to hear countless howls of wolves. She smiled. She wasn't attracted by that bewitching aura and her eyes were still clear. "You're not guilty, so why do you need to forgive me? Do you want to sit down and eat with me? Your servant will boldly accept your invitation." In ancient times there were very few varieties of breakfast. Even the gentry only ate a little more meticulously. However, the audience in the streaming room expressed that even if they had watched it for a few years, they still wouldn't get tired of it. Moreover, there was a classical beauty today. She was a feast for the eyes and they could eat a few more meat buns just by looking at her. The two of them finished their breakfast in silence and Jiang Pingji dismissed the other servants. "Do you know what to do in the future?" Huijun thought about it and said, "Help the second Nyangzi gain favor and fight for the fourth prince's favor?" After all, she was a bride accompanying the bride. Apart from that, she really didn't know what else she could do. However, if that was all, it wouldn't explain the amount of effort the Lus had invested in her. "No, in fact, this has nothing to do with my sister," Jiang Pingji said calmly. "Nothing to do with it?" Huijun heard that and her heart skipped a beat. She vaguely understood something. She didn't know about the fight for the throne, and she didn't know which prince was more likely to ascend to the throne in the future. However, since she was going to be a beauty who brought disaster to the country, she would naturally be by the emperor's side and attract all of his attention. She wanted him to be infatuated with her, to the point where he would disregard the laws of the country. The Lus had arranged for her to be a bride accompanying the bride. It was probably not to invest in the fourth prince. "Your servant heard that the emperor is in good health." She probed. The emperor was in good health, which meant that the emperor had many more years to live. It wouldn't be the time for the princes to covet the throne. If she guessed correctly, she wanted her to seduce the fourth prince and use Wumajun to go to the emperor's side? Huijun's eyes flashed and her expression changed slightly. Jiang Pingji knew that she had guessed the truth. She nodded slowly. "Your servant understands." She took a deep breath and showed the expression of a brave man who had made a decision. "The princess of the second prince is the princess of the northern borderline. Her name is Yaina. She's about the same age as you, but she's very scheming." Jiang Pingji deliberately mentioned it and Huijun understood. "Your servant will deal with this person cautiously." Jiang Pingji said, "Don't be afraid. You just need to enjoy your life. As for the rest, you can do whatever you want." "Your servant isn't afraid. It's worth it to enjoy one more day." Chapter 336. Protect her. At a time when she had become the real demoness who brings calamity to the nation, when everyone in the world wished to eat her blood and eat her flesh, Huijun didn't say a word. Her watery eyes flickered with complicated emotions. Huijun wasn't willing to believe such a beautiful promise, but her heart betrayed her rationality in an instant. Jiang Pingji added, "As I said, this is a fair deal. I'm investing in you, expending my energy to let you enjoy all the riches and wealth in the world. You'll help me achieve my goal. After this is done, I naturally have the responsibility to ensure your safety." Because of Jiang Pingji's promise, the bullet screen in the streaming room changed its style. Previously they had been sucking up to Huijun's peerless beauty, but now they were cheering Jiang Pingji on. Zwizen Beishijing, su 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 crispy heavens. Streamer, do you still need someone in your harem? Someone who went to college and knows how to code. Wei Dashin Yunji. The streamer is really amazing. She's so broad-minded. I feel like I'm about to be conquered by her even through the screen. Suiwe Zaiji Lusher. #facepalm. Think so too. The host was clearly not flirting with him, but he felt like he had been flirted with. Ling Long Mibaosuo. Although I think that the streamer is just fulfilling the terms of the transaction contract, it's really good. Dora Aiming. Sigh. Since ancient times there have been many people who used women to mess up the imperial court and then burned the bridge after achieving their goals. They should all learn from the streamer. Thinking about how those guys would throw the pot at a femme fatale, I would still choose the streamer. It was a fair transaction, ensuring the interests of both parties and abiding by the terms of the contract. Felt so refreshing. Of course, among the 150,000 viewers, there were bound to be some who disliked Jiang Pingji. Wu Xian. #picknose. Promises that aren't fulfilled are just bullsh**. Who knows how she'll burn the bridge after crossing it. Ishuang Chopsticks. What's Sue exploding heaven? I feel so embarrassed. I just think it's disgusting and pretentious. Only a fool would believe it. Sans Hisong Xuningsher. To the commenters above, just because you can't do it doesn't mean that the host can't do it. Let me return a sentence to you. The host's words are a promise. But is your malicious speculation the truth? His face was as big as a basin. I don't know if the host is Sue or not, but I know that she is very responsible and broad-minded. Of course, a man who dared to point his sword at the throne couldn't even protect a woman? Huijun did not know that there was an audience watching the live broadcast, nor did she know about their comments. She was not a fool, but she still chose to believe them. Since you've said so, your servant will wait for Longjuan's arrival at Shangyang Palace. Before that, she wanted to live well and live more freely than anyone else. All right. Jiang Pingji scrutinized Huijuan's appearance. Those cards did not take effect instantly. There was a buffer period in between, and the user's original appearance would gradually change. The first to take effect were the temperament and minor adjustments cards. The current Huijun already possessed a mysterious aura that bewitched people with every move she made. Her eyes also had a deep allure to them. If one was not on guard, it would be very easy to be attracted by her. Cover your face with a veil for the time being. Wait until my stepsister and Wumajun. Then you will look for an opportunity and wait for the right time to act. Huijun nodded. Your servant will bear that in mind. As long as she firmly hooked onto Wumajun and won his favor, Huijun did not believe that she could not find an opportunity to get close to the emperor. Jiang Pingji thought of a certain detail and mentioned it to Huijun, lest she break a taboo in the future and be harmed instead. Your appearance is very similar to the white moonlight in the emperor's heart. Use this well. It may become a sharp weapon for you. If you can replace the white moonlight, that would be the best. Jiang Pingji smiled coldly and said to Huijun, of course, you don't have to deliberately imitate that person's words and actions. After all, a substitute can never replace the original. Only by becoming another white moonlight, the beloved of the emperor, can you gradually erase everything that the previous person left in the emperor's heart. As for how exactly to do it, you're so smart. You can figure it out yourself. White moonlight. Huijun did not understand. She did not understand what the term meant. A sweetheart that one wishes for but cannot get. Or, in other words, one has already obtained but has no choice but to give up for some reason. Huijuan's eyes widened in surprise. In the hearts of the people, the emperor was the most omnipotent person in the world. There was actually a person in this world that the emperor could not obtain? Oh yes, after you enter the palace, remember to secretly investigate the Wang family. The late Wang Guifei was the birth mother of the fourth prince. Huijun silently remembered all of this. She tilted her head, her eyes filled with doubt. I wonder what kind of temperament the white moonlight in the emperor's heart has? Jiang Pingji thought about it and said, probably the kind of weak woman who can't breathe without a man. Your servant understands. Since the white moonlight was a gentle fairy, Jiang Pingji would take the bold path and be a seductive enchantress. After temporarily settling Huijuan's matter, she rummaged through her little treasury and picked out many good things for Xuanmei's dowry. As she was listing out the items, Takshu, who was outside the house, pushed the door open slightly. She bowed and said, Lang Jun, the second Xianxia requests to see you. The second Xianxia? That stepsister? Jiang Pingji frowned. She rummaged through Lu Shi's memory and could only find a vague, young figure. Although they lived in the same house, Lu Shi had almost zero contact with his stepsister. After Jiang Pingji came here, she had never seen her. Later, she went to Langyi to study, so she had never seen the legendary second Xianxia of the Lu residence. Let her come in. Jiang Pingji tidied up the table. Not long after, light footsteps and the rustling of clothes came from behind the screen. When she saw her stepsister's face, she suddenly smiled. She completely understood Lu Shi's intentions. Why did he insist on marrying her stepsister to Wuma Jun? Have a seat, we're a family, there's no need to be restrained. The second Xianxia sat down according to her words. She looked at Jiang Pingji for a long time without speaking. Her gaze was timid, as if she had been bullied. The two of them looked at each other. Neither had the intention of taking the initiative to break the silence. In the end, it was the stepsister who could not bear it anymore. She nervously twisted her handkerchief and secretly bit her lower lip. Brother Shi, I'm here today for a favor. What is it? I'm about to marry into the royal family, but my birth mother still has no status. Jiang Pingji interrupted her and said, and then? Brother Shi, can you write a letter to father? My identity in the residence is rather awkward. If I marry into the royal family, which has strict rules, and someone uses my birth mother's matter to poke my nose, father and brother Shi will lose face, won't they? Jiang Pingji narrowed her eyes and looked at her stepsister. Whether her words were true or false, could not be hidden from Jiang Pingji's eyes. Chapter 337. Her stepsister choked on her words, but she still didn't give up and said, I just want to give my birth mother a title. I have no other intentions. Her father had been away from home for many years and had never been to the backyard. She was depressed and could only rely on her younger sister. Now, little sister was about to marry into the royal family and become someone else's wife. In the future, she would no longer have the opportunity to serve mother. Brother Shi, as children, you and I should understand this worry. Her stepsister spoke very sincerely. Her eyes were faintly filled with tears, which moved the hearts of those who saw it. The audience in the live broadcast room also softened. Tudu Feiqiu, she's quite a filial girl. I think it's normal for her to help her lowly mother get a status. Noodle House head chef, Sai, he looks so pitiful. Lao Siji Lianming, what a pity. The host was born from his first wife. This concubine-born sister and the host were not born from the same mother. In modern terms, would you want to help a mistress get a proper status just because your half-sister is pitiful? Isn't this a joke? Go to the toilet with fingers. The problem is that ancient times and modern times are different. In ancient times, it was legal for people to have multiple wives, okay? They were not mistresses. In Yueja Zhugachinmal. It's legal for a man to have more than one wife, not 3 or 4 wives. In addition, I've been following the live broadcast room for several years. My stepsister's birth mother can't even be considered a concubine. How can she have the face to ask for a status? Although it was called filial piety, it was actually more of a threat. Jiang Pingji frowned and glanced at the bullet screen in the streaming room. She sent a bullet screen to quell the debate. Host V. My stepsister is not my biological daughter, she was adopted. She didn't know, but her biological mother definitely knew. Naturally, she wouldn't urge her to ask for a title. This could only be her own idea. If she was really filial, she could have written a letter to her father after she got married. She hadn't even gotten married yet she came to me to tell me about this. In the name of filial piety, it was actually a threat. How could her thoughts be pure? She was Lu Shi's only legitimate son, but she was now 15 years old. In ancient times, she would have been a man who could have married and started a career. What kind of adult son would interfere with the status of his father's concubine? Jiang Pingji looked at him coldly and asked, First of all, you only have one mother, which is your father's legal wife. Secondly, mother had helped father take care of the backyard for many years. Had she ever mistreated anyone? If your words spread out, are you trying to accuse mother of being unjust, saying that she was harsh and sinister? His sister's face turned pale and she did not dare to speak again. Jiang Pingji took out a booklet from the table and threw it to her. she said, "This is the list of dowry that I prepared for you. It's more than enough. You don't have to be petty with me. You can go and look at the other concubine daughters. Which one of them has such a generous dowry? Marrying the fourth prince was the best marriage that father had planned for you. Mother was afraid that you would feel inferior and think too much, so she opened the treasury to prepare for your marriage." His stepsister's face looked as if it had been painted with several layers of lime water. It was deathly pale, and her eyes were filled with terror as if her thoughts had been seen through. Jiang Pingji squinted her eyes and said in an impolite tone, "Don't think that the manor lacks anything from you. I don't owe you or your birth mother anything. You are going to marry into the royal family and have a meteoric rise, but so what? You said that as a child I should understand your filial piety, but you are also going to be a wife. Shouldn't you understand the feelings of a legal wife? A mere concubine's daughter is going to marry into a noble family. A large amount of dowry has been set aside for her marriage, and you still have to promote a thorn in your side to disgust yourself. How can mother keep her face?" His stepsister picked up her dowry list. She did not look at the contents listed at the back, but the items at the front were enough to dazzle her. Just as Jiang Pingji had guessed, his stepsister came this time with her own intentions. She reminded Lu Shi and his son not to forget that she was going to join the royal family. She represented the face of the Lu manor, so the dowry list could not be too small. If it was not enough, she should be given a good reputation. Even if she could not be recorded as a legal mother, she should be given the status of a concubine to her birth mother. Jiang Pingji said leisurely, "You are a young lady who is going to get married. Don't meddle in the affairs of father's backyard." After she finished speaking, his stepsister was filled with joy and fear. She casually found an excuse to return to her courtyard. Looking at her stepsister's back as she left, Jiang Pingji raised her eyebrows and threw the matter to the back of her mind. In another place, Su Ke's aunt happily chose an auspicious day. The tailor was measuring Su Ke's figure. "Aunt, choose an early date. It's best to get it done within half a month," Su Ke said. His aunt was doubtful. "Half a month? That's too rushed. Xuanmei will be treated unfairly." Took a lot of time to complete the 3 letters and 6 rituals. If they were to prepare for marriage within half a month, it would inevitably be simpler. Su Ke said helplessly, "If we don't get married within half a month, I don't know if there will be a chance in the future." "What do you mean?" His aunt was puzzled. She immediately thought of something. "Is it possible that Xuanmei is unwilling? Or do you want to change your mind?" "No." Su Ke frowned and comforted his aunt. "It's just that the current situation is unforgiving. Lang Jun has great ambitions, so Ke naturally has to follow by his side. This time, Lang Jun will send the second mother of the main family to Shangjing to get married. I'm afraid there will be other variables. If we're unlucky, we won't have peaceful days in the next few years. I'm afraid that Xuanmei will be delayed. So Ke thinks it's better to get married first." His aunt did not know what the variables were, but she knew that Su Ke would not joke about such things. He was suddenly in a dilemma. Su Ke said in a low voice, "After we get married, I'll compensate her properly." His aunt's face turned cold. She understood that according to Su Ke and Xuanmei's age, they really could not be delayed any longer. After a long time she said, "Forget it. We're ordinary people. We just want to have a lively and festive event. We can save the unnecessary formalities." Looking at the time, there was a good day in 11 days. If Xuanmei agrees, then it's settled. But you have to compensate her properly in the future. If you mistreat her, I'll be the first to not forgive you. Su Ke nodded. "Don't worry, aunt. I know." Although the wedding was a little rushed, it was not chaotic. On the day the dowry was shown, the generous dowry that Jiang Pingji prepared for Xuanmei made the neighbors jealous. All the neighbors said that Su Ke was very lucky to be able to marry such a beautiful woman. Jiang Pingji even used Su Ke's wedding as a semi-interactive live stream. She explained the wedding process in detail to the live stream audience. On that day, there were especially many live stream audience members who sent gift money. The gifts almost flooded the backstage. 3 days after the wedding, Jiang Pingji did not disturb the two of them and let them continue to be intimate. But time flew. Xuanmei, who was dressed like a married woman, had already prepared the wedding gifts for her newly married husband. The two of them sat on the couch and looked at each other in silence. There was no other newlywed couple like them, who had to be separated after a few days of marriage. After thinking for a while, Xuanmei said, "Be careful when you're outside. I'll take care of everything at home." Suku nodded and held her hands with both of his. He said guiltily, "I'm sorry. It's good. After all, this is my own choice. I'm afraid that in the future, my husband will find out that I'm not what I look like and dislike me." Xuanmei's lips moved. Her eyes were filled with hesitation. After a long time, she actually took the initiative to hug Suku's waist. Also, never let Langjun and Taksha be alone. Suku was dumbfounded. Chapter 338. Betrayal. Suku woke up from his daze. He looked serious and subconsciously held Sunmei's hand. "When did this happen?" Xuanmei sighed and looked worried. She said in a pleading tone, "It's really inconvenient for me to say more about this matter, but don't worry. Langjun is a clever person. I'm afraid Taksha won't be able to deceive her. I really don't want to talk about the past. But could Suku stop here? Tell me clearly. Tell me what you can." Suku sighed. His eyes became especially serious. "Since you and I have become husband and wife, we are naturally one. We share blessings and misfortunes. If this matter is not serious, I will confess to Langjun for you and ask for leniency. If it is serious, I will find a way to bear it for you, but you can't deliberately hide it." Sunmei was speechless. How could she tell him about this? The newlyweds, who were supposed to sleep together and tell each other about their love, looked at each other in silence. The atmosphere became dignified and tense. "Sunmei, you are willing to marry me because you want to find another way out, right?" Suddenly, Suku looked at Sunmei with burning eyes. The depth and probing in his eyes seemed to be able to peel off Sunmei and see through her heart. Sunmei's lips moved. Under such a gaze, she couldn't say anything to deceive him. Her slender white hands unconsciously twisted a corner of the quilt. She couldn't help but avoid Suku's direct gaze. If there was a crack in the ground at this moment, she would want to hide in it to give her some sense of security. Suku sighed and said sincerely, "I was born as a commoner. I had no official title or contribution. Later, I committed a murder case because of my mother. I was sent to prison and was punished. Although I was pardoned, I was still a lowly person and was sold. If I wasn't lucky enough to meet Langjun, I don't know what kind of situation I would be in now. At least, I wouldn't have such a happy and peaceful life like now. My aunt could live out her old age and I had a beautiful wife by my side. Therefore, to me, Langjun is more important than my life." Sunmei's heart skipped a beat. She couldn't help but clench her fists. "Actually, I used to wonder what kind of luck I had to make you, who was by my Langjun's side, fall in love with me at that time." Now that he thought about it, there seemed to be a hidden reason. This hidden reason probably involved a lot of things. "Xuanmei, since you've married me, you'll be husband and wife in this life. I'll never abandon you. So, no matter what it is, you and I will face it together." When Suku went to Shangjing with Jiang Pingji for the first time, Xuanmei expressed her feelings to him, but he did not agree. It was not that he was not moved, but he carefully considered his own conditions and future. He felt that he should not delay such a good woman, so he tactfully declined. But in the next few years he saw Xuanmei's efforts and remembered it in his heart. His aunt repeatedly told him how filial and obedient Xuanmei was, and how deeply she loved him. Because of all these, even if Suku had a heart of stone, he couldn't help but feel pity and admiration for her. Suku held Sunmei's hand and realized that her palms were covered in cold sweat and her fingers were still trembling. "I don't know much about this either." After a long time, when the candle in the room was burning quietly, Xuanmei hesitantly opened her mouth. "You don't know much?" Suku was even more confused. "Why would I lie to you at this moment?" Xuanmei lowered her head. Her long eyelashes cast a fan-shaped shadow. "I really don't know much. In fact, I'm not from Dongqing. I'm originally from a small village at the border of Zhongzhou. I still remember that there was a drought in my hometown. There was no harvest for thousands of miles of wilderness. Every family would fight to the death for a bit of tree bark." "From Zhongzhou?" Suku was shocked. He hurriedly gathered his thoughts and listened carefully to Xuanmei's story. "Later, my father was instigated by someone and actually wanted to sell my mother to a brothel in exchange for some food. I was stubborn at that time and was famous for being shrewd. It was as if my heart was covered with lard. I raised a kitchen knife and chopped the man until he was half dead. Xuanmei's calm narration made Suku shocked and distressed. He was afraid that she dared to kill her father, but the reason she did it was because she had no other choice. As for distressed, it was naturally because he felt sorry for the young Xuanmei. I was extremely afraid. Every time I closed my eyes, it was as if there was a malicious spirit surrounding me wanting to take my life. Killing one's father was an unforgivable crime. Even if her father was not dead, Xuanmei was so afraid that she wanted to escape. However, a large-scale drought and food shortage created a large number of refugees. Xuanmei was still very young at that time and could not protect herself at all. In the end, she was caught by human traffickers and secretly sold to Dongqing, which was adjacent to Zhongzhou. Xuanmei found an opportunity to escape. Hearing that Xuanmei escaped from the hands of human traffickers, Suku could not help but think of himself. He was also prepared to escape, but Jiang Pingji intercepted him and his plan went to waste. Later I became a child beggar. I met an old beggar and learned some stealing skills. I was so hungry that I went to steal. That day I accidentally stole the jade pendant from the late madam's waist. Speaking of this, Xuanmei couldn't help but burst into a smile. Fortunately, this servant was lucky to meet the late madam, who was kind and generous. If it was someone else, I'm afraid they would have been beaten to death. The late lady, who was Gu Min, felt that Xuanmei was pitiful. She was also a girl. If she continued to wander the streets, her future would be ruined. She had the body of a beauty. When she grew up, wouldn't the hooligans have designs on Xuanmei? Therefore, Gu Min brought Xuanmei back to the Lu residence and made her a servant in the residence. She guaranteed that she would not be hungry for 3 meals a day. I thought that this would be the end of my life. I would marry a manservant after I reached marriageable age. When I got older, I would become a wet nurse in the residence and serve the young master. Unexpectedly, the late lady's health deteriorated day by day. That year, when the plum blossoms were in full bloom, she suddenly passed away. After Gu Min passed away, only Lu Shi was left. The entire Lu residence was shrouded in dark clouds. Lu Shi carefully selected and finally chose Xuanmei and Takshu to be his personal servants. He secretly ordered someone to teach them martial arts. Looking at the root, Xuanmei's background was very clean. She was indebted to the late Gu Min, so she would not harm Gu Min's bloodline. Lu Shi thought very well and made very thorough arrangements, but his plans could not keep up with the changes. Chapter 339. Suku asked, "Is there something wrong with this couple?" Xuanmei nodded. "I was young when I escaped from my hometown, but I could still remember what my parents looked like. They were strangers. How could they be my parents? But they brought my parents' belongings." Xuanmei sensed something was wrong, so she pretended to admit it. The family had a private conversation for a while. She was told that her parents and younger siblings were all in the hands of the other party. If she was not willing to obey, those people would die. On the contrary, if she was obedient, her parents and younger siblings could live a good life. Xuanmei was skeptical. She did not care about her father's life, but she could not abandon her mother and younger siblings. "I promised to be their informant and mole." Speaking of this, Xuanmei's expression became a little weird. "But that group of people only asked me to keep an eye on the second Xianxia in the backyard. If there is any unusual movement, I must report it." Xuanmei was really confused by such a strange order, but she obeyed and carefully monitored the second Xianxia all these years. Her daily life was either reading, painting, or doing needlework. She was sunbathing, admiring flowers, and playing with the maids around her. Suku asked, "What's going on with Takshu?" Which lunatic would stare at the daughter of a concubine in the backyard of the Lu residence? Both husband and wife were confused by this question. "I didn't know that Takshu was also a mole at first. But Takshu and I are both Longjuan's personal maids. We have a lot of interactions, so I gradually noticed her abnormality. She is especially attentive to the second Xianxia, and some of her actions are also very suspicious." Suku nodded. "But what's so strange about the second Xianxia? Why is she being watched by a strange force?" Xuanmei shook her head. "I don't know either." Suku was speechless. "Probably because the content of the reports is similar, fewer and fewer people contact me. Who would have the time to listen to a girl's daily life? It would be boring if they listened too much. Without them, I don't know how my mother and younger sister-in-law are doing. I had no choice but to find a way. I used my connections and asked the servants of the Lu residents who did business in Zhongzhou to help me find out. Unexpectedly, my father did not survive the drought. In the end, my mother voluntarily sold herself to a brothel to let my younger sister-in-law live. It's just that they had a hard life. Their younger brother was beaten to death by a local ruffian, and their younger sister was murdered. They're all gone. In other words, that group of people was deceiving Sun Mei. Not long after Sun Mei received the real news about her family, the swindler who hadn't appeared for a few years appeared again. I really want to see what kind of tricks these people have up their sleeves. I'll just feign civility with them. Some killing intent flashed in Xianxia's eyes. She said coldly, but this time they don't care about the second Yangzi. They even ordered me to keep an eye on Lang Jun. Suku asked, when did this happen? Xianxia thought for a moment. About 3 years ago, Lang Jun implemented the food purchase restriction and was preparing to go to Shangjing. The change of command made Sun Mei vigilant. Thinking of the late wife's appreciation, she could not do anything to hurt Lu Shi. Are there any other orders besides keeping an eye on Lang Jun? Xianxia said, there is such a saying, but I think it's best if you don't listen to it. After listening to Xianxia's explanation, Suku relaxed a lot. At the very least, up until now, Sun Mei had not made a huge mistake. There was still room for redemption. Therefore his tone was also a lot more relaxed. What on earth is it that I can't listen to it? Xianxia secretly rolled her eyes. The other order that the informant gave me was to make Lang Jun become a well-behaved noble lady while he is still unsettled. Suku was dumbfounded. No matter how heroic Lang Jun is, he is still an upright man. How can he be molded into a well-behaved noble lady? Xianxia sneered. That's why I said it's better if you don't listen to it. Suku was speechless. He still did not understand. These orders made me panic, so I wanted to stop at the brink of the cliff. Xianxia feigned civility with those informants while thinking about a way out. Then she met Suku. My original plan was to marry you, and then use the money I have saved over the years to redeem our marriage contract. After that, I would go far away. Before Xianxia finished, Suku interrupted her. If you want to leave the Lu mansion, you don't have to marry. Xianxia rolled her eyes. Darling, it's easy for you to say that. I am a young girl. How can I be safe walking outside alone? I'm just afraid that before I go far, I will already be targeted by sneaky people and be sold to those shady places. Suku was speechless. Moreover, you don't have to belittle yourself. Among all the servants in the Lu mansion, even if you have a tattoo on your face, your appearance is still the best, not to mention your knowledge and way of talking. For a girl, isn't he a good candidate for a husband? Xianxia knew her identity and she did not want to climb up the social ladder. However, she had to find someone that suited her. She pestered Suku at first because she was in a hurry to escape from the Lu mansion, but later she really wanted to marry Suku. Then you reminded me to be wary of Takshu. Did the orders given by the informant change again? Xianxia sighed and said, maybe I want to marry you too much, so I acted improperly and made those people hate me. What do you mean? Takshu tested me a few times. At first it was just a warning, but it gradually became more malicious. Until the day before the wedding, Takshu looked at me with murderous eyes, as if she was looking at a dead person. From this, it can be seen that those people did not want me to live. She tested me a few times, but I dealt with her cautiously. Then Takshu believed that I was tight-lipped and did not leak anything about them. Xianxia smiled mockingly when she said that. Takshu thought that she had concealed it well, but Xianxia gradually realized that Lang Jun had probably already found out. Putting aside everything else, when Lang Jun went to Langyi to study, she initially wanted to go with him. However, Lang Jun spoke strangely and asked her to stay in Hejian County. He even hinted that if she wanted to pursue Suku, it would be better to start with the people around him and leave a good impression. Therefore, Xianxia stayed and Lang Jun took Takshu away. Now that she thought about it, Xianxia could not help but wonder, did Lang Jun do that with the intention of protecting her? After all, if she did not separate from Takshu, there would be an accident sooner or later. It was a pity that Takshu did not realize this. Takshu wants to kill me. I'm afraid you will soon be a widower. Suku's face turned cold when he heard that. He hugged Xuanmei tightly. He reprimanded her gently. Why are you talking about these inauspicious things? Xuanmei smiled happily and rested her head on his shoulder. When that time comes, will you still remember me, husband? I won't be a widower. You still want to be a mother. After that, the couple covered themselves with the quilt. The quilt turned red and the room was full of spring. The clouds disappeared and the rain stopped. Suke got up and washed his body with warm water. Then he changed into his daily clothes. You sleep first. I'm going to find Langjun to ask for his opinion. This matter cannot be delayed. Xuanmei nestled in the quilt and held her chin. Cannot be delayed? Then why weren't you serious just now? Chapter 340. Su Xiaoyu, you'd better give me a good reason. She controlled her strength and slammed the table. The sound was so loud that it made people's ears itch. Jiang Pingji didn't have a bad temper, but who would like to be woken up at a critical moment when they were sound asleep? The weather in Hejian County was cold, not to mention the temperature in the middle of the night. It was chilly as if she had been thrown into an ice house. She waited patiently for Suku to speak. She wanted to know what kind of big matter it was that made him abandon his warm and fragrant wife and come to disturb her sleep in the cold air. Thinking of the hot bed and the soft quilt, Jiang Pingji couldn't be nice to Suku. Sitting on the seat of honor, she rubbed her face to dispel her sleepiness and stared at Suku, who was kneeling in front of her. Suku had just been married, but he could hold his wife and have sex with her. It was hard not to feel hot. But she was just a single dog all alone. If the heat in the blanket ran away, she would have to warm it up again, okay? Why are you here in the middle of the night instead of holding your wife and carrying on the family line? Jiang Pingji's tone was harsh. There was still a red sleep mark on one side of her face, which showed how bad her mood was. Suka coughed secretly. He was a little uneasy. He only remembered that the matter was important, but he forgot that it was not a good time to disturb her. Most of them had fallen into a deep sleep, including Jiang Pingji. I have something important to tell you, Langjun. Please calm down a little. He was really afraid that Jiang Pingji would be in a fit of anger. After hearing about Sun Mei, she would add fuel to the fire and accidentally hurt her teammates. Say it. I'm very calm now. Jiang Pingji said with a long face. Her mood was obviously not as good as she said. Suku was speechless and thought for a while. This matter is related to my wife, Xuanmei. Please forgive her this time, considering that she has been by your side and carefully took care of you. If you are still angry after hearing this, you can blame it on me. I only hope that you can give her a chance to make up for her mistakes. Suku said solemnly. He told her everything Sun Mei had told him, no matter how big or small. It was not difficult to explain the matter clearly. The difficult part was how to avoid the important and dwell on the trivial so as to remove Xuanmei from this matter. Fortunately, Xuanmei hadn't really done anything wrong yet. Confessing would actually result in a lighter sentence. However, Jiang Pingji's reaction was beyond Suku's expectation. Even if she didn't fly into a rage, she should have shown a gloomy and angry expression. After all, Sun Mei's actions had already constituted betrayal. I knew about this a long time ago, but I didn't expect Xuanmei to confess to you so soon. As soon as Jiang Pingji spoke, Suku's expression changed. She continued, Xuanmei is very tight-lipped and she's very defensive. As far as I know, you're the only one she's told. At first I thought she would keep it a secret until it was too late. If the news gets out, she'll be in an awkward situation. Xuanmei's act of betrayal could be called unjust and disloyal. As her husband, how could Suku not feel disgusted by such a woman? Not to mention that Xuanmei had betrayed the Lu residence. The Lu residence was indebted to Xuanmei and Suku. As a scholar, it was impossible for him to accept such a stain on his reputation. When did you know about it? Suku was dumbfounded. If Xuanmei hadn't taken the initiative to tell him, he wouldn't have noticed. Jiang Pingji smiled. There's no perfect plan in this world. Xuanmei and Takshu aren't professional spies, so they're not good at hiding. Some of their actions are different from usual. As long as you're careful, you'll notice. Suku was startled when he heard that. He seemed to be thinking about something. Xuanmei took the initiative to tell you about it, which also shows her position, Jiang Pingji said. She looked into Suku's eyes and said, Go back and comfort her lest she thinks too much. As for Takshu, we can't touch her for now, but I'll take her away. The Lu residence is usually heavily guarded, so the people in the dark won't dare to extend their claws in. Xuanmei is just an unimportant chess piece, so she won't be in danger. Suke sat on his knees with his hands clenched into fists. His expression was inexplicably complicated. You don't care about Xuanmei's mistakes? She didn't do any substantial harm and she's your wife. Why should I care about her mistakes? Jiang Pingji shook her head and said, in fact, when Xuanmei wanted to marry you, I didn't plan to settle the score. Suke was stunned and asked, why? She's a smart woman. I think she already realized that her future was uncertain, so she wanted to retreat and get out of the swamp. You said it yourself, she took care of me for many years, and our relationship is no less than that of a biological brother and sister. If that's the case, why would I kill her because of the harm that hasn't happened yet? I gave her a chance and fortunately Xuanmei didn't let me down. Suke was silent for a long time after hearing that. I don't support the marriage between you and Xuanmei. Do you know why? Jiang Pingji explained in detail. There are 2 reasons. First, you Su Xiaoyu are not an ordinary person. People's hearts change. If you become successful in the future and Xuanmei is just an ordinary woman, I'm afraid she won't be able to keep you and you'll end up as a resentful couple. Second, even if I forgive her, it'll always be a hidden danger if I don't say it out loud. Fortunately, Xuanmei took the initiative to confess, which left a great buffer for the contradiction. It could be said that she made up for her mistake. After a long time, Jiang Pingji added, I don't blame her. In fact, there was really nothing to blame. She yawned and said sleepily, if there's nothing else, go back and hug your wife. Don't disturb my sleep. Suke didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He thought the matter was serious, so he came here in the middle of the night, but he didn't expect to get such an outcome. Thanks you on behalf of my wife. Suke had reason to believe that the person in front of him had a rare breadth of mind. Are you done? Jiang Pingji supported her head with one hand and sleepiness came over her. The couple was fighting and she, as a single dog, was disturbed from her sleep. She could only fight with her eyelids. Suke also knew how to read people's faces. He knew that Jiang Pingji was sleepy, so he bowed and left. Jiang Pingji took a deep breath and tried to keep her eyes open. She crawled back to the bed with her hands and feet, hugging the quilt and rolling to the inside of the bed. The world was big, but sleep was the most important. Anything else could wait until dawn. Suke carried the lantern back to his room. There was a lamp in the room and the orange candlelight warmed his heart. It's settled. He took off his outer shirt and put it aside. He hugged Xuanmei's waist and sighed as he rested his head on her shoulder. It's settled? So fast? Xuanmei waited anxiously and her heart was anxious. Yes, Langjun is broad-minded. Ordinary people can't be compared to him. I've informed him about this, so it should be settled. Xuanmei lowered her eyelids and her heart finally fell to the ground. We're leaving tomorrow. Suke whispered, but it's still early. My wife, settle down. Chapter 341. Although she had been disturbed by Suke once, Jiang Pingji's sleep quality had always been excellent. The sky had just turned bright. When the rooster crowed for the first time, Jiang Pingji woke up on time due to the call of her biological clock. The footsteps of the maids gradually sounded outside the bedroom. With the help of the maids, Jiang Pingji washed her face with warm water to wash away the sleepiness on her face. He became energetic. After washing up, the maids served the food on the table. Not to mention the taste of the breakfast, at least it looked good. It was arranged delicately and beautifully like a work of art. One would have an appetite just by looking at it. However, that morning was not so peaceful. Something disgusting had just happened. Just as Jiang Pingji started the streaming on time and was halfway through her breakfast, Taksha came over to report that her stepsister wanted to see her again. Tiske, that dowry list can't even seal her mouth. Jiang Pingji clicked her tongue in displeasure. Her tone was full of sarcasm. She did not hide her malice towards her stepsister. Let her in. She came to look for me before finishing her breakfast. She must be hungry. She's a delicate, noble girl. How can she endure the pain of hunger? If outsiders were to see it, who knows what they would say about this brother of mine, saying that he treated her unfairly. Taxia smiled and echoed, Lang Jun treats his servants so gently. Why would he treat his stepsister harshly? I'll call the second Yangzi now. Jiang Pingji did not comment. Her expression was still indifferent. Not long after, Jiang Pingji and the audience in the streaming room clearly heard a series of heavy footsteps full of anger approaching. With a swoosh, the hall door was opened. A gust of cold wind rushed in impatiently. Brother Shi, what do you mean by this? Her stepsister sat directly in front of Jiang Pingji. Her eyes were wide open in anger. Her childish face looked a little more ferocious because of her anger. The streaming camera mischievously gave a close-up of her stepsister's face. Her dark nostrils opened and closed, and her heavy breathing was rapid. Many of the audience were shocked. They suddenly felt that the streamer's stepsister was not cute anymore. Jiang Pingji glanced at the bullet screen on the virtual screen. There were many comments like, scared the baby to death, his nostrils are so big, and a sudden close-up shot scared the baby so much that his sleepiness flew away. She saw them, but the corners of her lips did not curl up. She just lifted her eyelids lazily. Sister, what do you mean? Jiang Pingji coldly stared into his eyes and asked word by word, it's early in the morning and you didn't even tidy up your makeup. You came here without makeup to disturb your brother. Is this the self-restraint that a woman of the Liu family should have? His stepsister was choked by these words. Her heated brain cleared up a little, but her expression was still that of anger. I should be the one asking Brother Shi. His stepsister twisted her handkerchief with hatred. Her eyes were bloodshot and she said with a sorrowful expression, I've finally married into the royal family. It's fine if Brother Shi doesn't think of a way to help me, but why are you deliberately making things difficult for me? These words were very harsh. Which of the viewers in the live streaming room were not veterans who had read countless books on palace and house fights? A little daughter of a mistress talking to her brother like that was obviously asking for a beating. Sanyin Bubao, that's too much. I originally thought this loli was very cute, but now I see that she has the potential to be a vicious woman. How did the streamer do her wrong? How dare she point at her nose and criticize her like that? Who does she think she is? Nianku Sanson, actually she's not wrong. The streamer does have bad intentions. But from the looks of it, all the streamer's arrangements are for her own good. Others can't find fault with her at all. I remember that in ancient times the status of a mistress's daughter was very low. Not to mention sending her off with a dowry of 10 miles. It was already good enough that she was not sent off for a political marriage to seek benefits. She married a prince and gave him so much dowry, but she was still criticized. Kojiao Shao's Hamian, don't quarrel first. Listen to her reason. Jiang Pingji agreed with the viewer's opinion very much. She asked her stepsister coldly. Deliberately making things difficult for me? Do you mean that the dowry is not rich enough, or that the husband's family is not prominent enough, or that the wedding dress is not exquisite and perfect enough? Jiang Pingji made her stepsister swallow her words with a few words. She immediately sneered, remember your identity. A mistress's daughter of the Liu residence is not that valuable. Her stepsister's face instantly turned pale. The handkerchief in her hand made a tearing sound and broke into 2 pieces. She took a deep breath and calmed herself down. She was not married yet. Indeed, she should not fall out with her brother. But when she thought of the news she had just learned, she suddenly felt wronged. She bit her lower lip and said sadly, Brother Shi, you should know that once you enter the palace, you are as deep as the sea. Most of the women in the world are pitiful. Why do you still want to poke at me? I know that father and brother Shi are my reliance in the royal family. But if I want to have a firm foothold, children and the prince's love are indispensable. If I can be the first to give birth to a royal grandson, won't brother Shi be honored too? And then, Jiang Pingji listened patiently for a long time, but the other party was still dawdling and could not get to the point. This made Jiang Pingji very unhappy. However, the viewers in the streaming room reacted and reminded Jiang Pingji. Kazagio Chifan, damn, I understand. Is she complaining about the bride that the streamer arranged for her? When the bullet screen was posted, many viewers came back to their senses. They could not help but think of Hui Jun, who had a beauty that could captivate even the birds and beasts. If that was the case, they could understand. Any legal wife would feel uneasy if they had such a stunning woman in their dowry. Who knew if the groom's soul would be taken away by the bride on the wedding night, leaving the proper bride alone in the room? For women in ancient times, it was not an honorable thing to return the bride intact. As expected, the stepdaughter mentioned Huijun. If brother, she is really doing this for my own good, why did you arrange for that vixen called Huijun? Jiang Pingji asked in return. If you didn't prepare such a beautiful woman, would you have arranged for a woman with no face to be your dowry? Sister, I don't want to nag you, but you are only 12 years old. I know Wu Majun well. You would rather not eat meat for 3 days than to go without a woman for 1 day. How can you fight for favor with such a man and establish yourself in the backyard? Father specially selected Huijun and carefully prepared her. Before you reach the age of 15, she can totally win over Wu Majun. When you really grow up, can Huijun still monopolize your husband's favor and not return it? Her stepsister's expression was like a broken palette. There were all kinds of colors. It was truly a riot of colors. Seeing this, Jiang Pingji added another stab. Father wrote to you before and asked me to tell you that a woman's body is delicate. Childbirth is too damaging to the foundation. I am still young, so there is no hurry to pass on the heirs. It is not too late to consider it when you are 17 or 18. Her stepsister's face darkened when she heard this. She understood that there was no turning back for Huijun. What was more disgusting was that she could not be chased away or even treated harshly. Chapter 342. Right now, she was only a daughter born of a concubine. If she openly went against the Lu residents, her future husband Wu Majun might not treat her well if he was slightly more powerful. Thinking of Huijun, who had a beauty that could captivate even the birds, and then thinking of the fragrance that lingered around her body, that noble and charming temperament, even she as a woman could not help but be tempted, let alone her future husband. She recalled Jiang Pingji's comment about Wu Majun. I'd rather not eat meat for 3 days than go without a woman for 1 day. She felt indignant and jealous. Just wait and see. The concubine's daughter endured her grievances and returned to her own courtyard. She immediately saw her mother's silent expression and immediately became angry. Scram! What a good-for-nothing. The concubine's daughter lifted her leg and kicked away the birth mother, who was cleaning up the dowry. She was not young, but she was very strong. She kicked her in the chest and even tried to kill her. The surrounding maids were angry but did not dare to say anything. They all lowered their heads for fear of angering this concubine's daughter, who had a vicious and unpredictable temperament. The Lu family was very strict. The servants in the backyard did not dare to abuse the Longjuan's wife. However, the concubine's daughter felt that she was being neglected. She was very disgusted with the maids who served around her. Ever since she had received the decree to marry into the royal family, her neck had grown several times longer. The woman who was kicked clutched her chest and stood up. She looked at her nominal daughter with a strange expression. If it weren't for the fact that you didn't fight for favor, my position in the residence wouldn't be so awkward. Even though she was about to marry into the royal family, her brother, who was usually high and mighty, still treated her indifferently as if she was a stranger. The woman coughed, lowered her head and left. She didn't want to face this daughter anymore. No wonder he was a bastard. Even if he lived in luxury for many years, he still couldn't change the lowly nature of his bloodline. The indifferent reaction of the birth mother enraged the concubine's daughter even more. She forcibly broke her nails and slowly put away the viciousness on her face. She sat in front of the dressing mirror as if nothing had happened. Today was the first day of marriage. As the bride, she could not get angry frequently. She carefully combed her makeup and put on her most beautiful makeup. Her young and tender face was surprisingly full of charm. She asked her maid to imitate Huijuan's makeup, and the result was indeed stunning. However, her personal maidservant was the one who felt gloomy. Why did the appearance of his second Xianxia vaguely resemble that of Huijun? Especially after applying the same heavy makeup at first glance, they looked like two different models, one big and one small. However, Huijuan's appearance, temperament, body fragrance, temperament, methods, all of these completely crushed second Xianxia. When the two of them were put together, one seemed to be a masterpiece that excelled the heavens and exhausted all the love of the creator, while the other was an inferior imitation. If it wasn't for Huijun's age and the fact that she had been with the second lady for so many years, she would have suspected that the bride had been substituted by someone else. As he thought about it, he helped the concubine's daughter put on makeup, and then helped her put on a brand new and luxurious bright red dress. The style of the dress was similar to a wedding dress, and it was considered as a wedding dress. Hejian County was quite a distance from Shangjing. The bride couldn't just wear the same wedding dress all the time. The auspicious time had arrived and the wedding procession was ready to set off. Jiang Pingji was dressed in a festive brocade dress. As the elder brother, she carried her sister out of the manor and into the magnificent wedding carriage. She looked up at the sky and the time was just right. She immediately got on the back of White and walked at the front of the procession. She shouted, "The auspicious time has arrived, let's go." Jiang Pingji led the way in front. The newly decorated, festive and mighty White walked with its head held high. The other horses and old bulls all fell silent. In the corner, Suke couldn't help but nag at Xuanmei until the procession set off. "Husband, you should go with Langjun. I will take care of everything at home." Xuanmei saw that there wasn't much time left, so she quickly interrupted Suku. When the crowd wasn't paying attention, she cupped his face and kissed him gently. "Take care." Suku was dumbfounded. In the end, he even forgot how to get into the carriage. He silently raised his hand and rubbed his cheek. He couldn't help but blush and spit at the thought of his new wife being so bold in public. What a joke. He felt that he had married a fake virtuous wife. Where was the shyness and awkwardness that he had promised? The wedding procession was luxurious. In addition to the guards assigned by the Lu residents, there were also 5,000 majestic guards in armor. The guards were naturally assigned by the imperial court to ensure the safety of the future fourth princess. According to the custom, the bride who married far away had to sit in the wedding carriage and walk around the inner city. At the same time, they had to show the strength of their family. When the wedding procession had just walked around the inner city and walked out of the city gate, the porter at the end of the procession had just picked up the dowry. Although there was no festive music, the atmosphere was not quiet. The people on both sides of the street were rubbing shoulders with each other. They couldn't wait to stretch their necks to see the dowry. When they saw the dowry, they had a better understanding of the Lu residents. This dowry. Did they empty the warehouse of the second branch of the Lu residents? A person asked curiously. Someone beside him immediately answered. "Empty. I don't think so. Don't you know that bamboo paper, which is more valuable than gold, is produced by the workshop of the second branch of the Lu residents? Although the annual production is low, this alone is enough for the second branch of the Lu residents to live off their capital." A fat and strong woman spat heavily. Her saliva flew everywhere. Everyone in Hejian County knows that the paper workshop belongs to the late wife of the second branch of the Lu residents. She is a daughter of a concubine. How dare she covet the property of the first wife? The crowd was speechless. If the second branch of the Lu residents didn't touch the late wife's property, how could they gather so much dowry? Many people were silent when this question was asked. "I heard from my wife that the first branch of the Lu family is doing well, but the other branches are stingy. Governor Lu is so rich, but he doesn't want to help the main family. Instead, he gives so much face to a daughter of a concubine. It's unbelievable. After all, she is a daughter who married into the royal family. Even if she is a daughter of a concubine, she is still his own flesh and blood. He must treat her well." The crowd was talking. These trivial discussions occasionally drifted into the ears of the daughter of a concubine. Her expression immediately froze. Even if she is a daughter of a concubine? So what if she is a daughter of a concubine? Isn't a daughter of a concubine father's daughter? Why do the sons and daughters of the first wife have so many privileges while she, a daughter of a concubine, has to be looked down upon by everyone? She couldn't help but bite her lower lip. Her eyes flashed with complex malice. No, she must snatch her husband's love before Huijun does. Only by giving birth to a royal grandson could she really stand firm. No one could look down on her. On the other side, the carriage of the bride was much simpler. Huijun was wearing a simple red dress. She had a faint smile on her face. She looked like she was not sitting in a simple carriage, but in a magnificent palace. No one knew that she was holding a small bottle in her sleeve. There was a golden pill in it. I Ching pill. Chapter 343. Kazagio Chifan. It's so boring. Why aren't there any robbers? Lao Ciji Lianmeng. Although I also feel that the live stream has been boring these days, bandits would not come to die if they had any brains. Money can tempt people, but they must be alive to enjoy it. Not to mention the streamer, who is a killing machine in human form. The other 5,000 guards are not just for show. They are all wearing armor and holding spears and halberds. Small-scale bandits would not dare to rob them. Tonsillitis. #facepalm. As a newbie in the livestream, I think it's not boring to watch the streamer copy the first aid treatment. Note, that's right. I think it's good to have such plain content. I hope the streamer can carry forward the first aid knowledge in this dimension and create the noble profession of nurse in advance to improve the social status of the disadvantaged women. It took a long time to travel from Hejian to Shangjing. With the 5,000 guards outside, the bandits did not dare to show up. Jiang Pingji naturally had some free time. Since she had nothing to do, she put the first aid knowledge on the battlefield on the agenda. He picked up the brush and copied it seriously. Slowly she accumulated 300 to 400 pages. Taksha ground the ink for Jiang Pingji and persisted for a few days. One day she finally could not hold back her curiosity and asked, "Your servant has been copying in the carriage these days. What are you writing?" Jiang Pingji had just finished copying one page. She checked it carefully to make sure there were no mistakes. Then she dried the ink with an incense burner. "It's nothing. It's just some simple Qihuang medical skills." Jiang Pingji put the dried paper into the box and took out a new piece of paper. She spread it on the table. The carriage was still bumpy, but it did not affect her neat handwriting. Taksha grinded the ink and smiled. "Qihuang medical skills. Since when are you interested in these unorthodox things?" Jiang Pingji said, "Medical skills can save lives. It's better to know more about it. Who knows when it will come in handy. In my opinion, this is the right way." After hearing her explanation, Taksha was no longer interested. Her Langjun was indeed very smart and had a strong learning ability, but how could Qihuang medical skills be mastered so easily? Even if she started to study it now, she would only reach the level of an apprentice in 3 to 5 years. Time passed quickly as Jiang Pingji copied the book in silence. The bright full moon had already quietly risen outside. Everyone stopped their journey and started a fire to cook. Taksha covered her mouth with her hand and yawned sleepily. 2 drops of tears squeezed out from the corners of her eyes. Seeing that, Jiang Pingji said with pity, "If you're tired, go and rest. You don't have to serve me anymore." Taksha forced herself to stay awake and said, "How can this work? If I go down to rest, who will grind for you?" Jiang Pingji smiled slyly. "Don't forget that your Langjun has a page boy. Grinding is his job, let him take over from you." Outside, Suku sneezed. Taksha was not pretentious. She was really sleepy at that moment. When she was grinding just now, her head was nodding and she almost fell asleep. "Then I won't refuse. I'll go and call Su Langjun over." Jiang Pingji said, "Don't forget to bring a box of ink ingots over. The ink ingots here have been used up. I don't think we'll have enough to copy tonight." "All right." Not long after Taksha left, Suka carried a box of ink ingots into the carriage. He lifted the curtain and saw Jiang Pingji, whom he had not seen for a few days. As soon as he got into the carriage, he teased her with a smile. "I was just wondering why I haven't seen you for a few days. I didn't expect you to be studying hard in the carriage." He knew very well that Jiang Pingji could not sit still. She liked to ride around on white when she had nothing to do. She rarely stayed in the carriage quietly. For the past few days, it was as if she had disappeared from the world. There was no sign of her outside at all. Jiang Pingji pointed at the slightly dry ink stone. "Grind the ink." Suka took out an ink ingot that was filled with the fragrance of ink and ground it carefully. His gaze fell on the paper that Jiang Pingji copied. "Langjun, what did you write?" "Some basic first aid knowledge." Jiang Pingji rubbed her forehead and kept copying with her wrist. "I've read a lot of unofficial military strategies and found that when 2 armies fight, most soldiers don't die on the battlefield. Instead, they die because no one can save them." Takshu and Suka asked the same question, but Jiang Pingji's answer was completely different. The latter keenly sensed something. He cupped his hands and said, "Excuse me, may I borrow it for a look?" "Take a look." Jiang Pingji casually pointed at the box beside her. There were hundreds of thick sheets of paper in it. Suka took it and read it carefully. His eyebrows were tightly knitted at first, but then they slowly relaxed. His eyes were filled with amazement. This. Suku was so excited that he was almost incoherent. Others were short-sighted and thought that the Qi Huang technique was just unorthodox, but he was far-sighted. He knew how important the things that Jiang Pingji wrote were and how many soldiers' lives would be saved in the future. He bit the tip of his tongue and suppressed the excitement in his heart. He asked, "Langjun, did you write this?" Jiang Pingji shook her head and said, "No. Most of the contents were copied from Mr. Wenfu. I then combined them and wrote them in simple words that are easy to understand. After all, not everyone can read. If it is too profound, no one will understand." Wenfu referred to Qing Wenfu, who was also Qing Cheng. Qing Cheng and Jiang Pingji made a deal. She provided bamboo paper and he would make a copy of all the books in his house for her. It had been almost 3 years, but Qing Cheng had only given her 2/3 of the books he promised. It was not that Qing Cheng was being crafty and deliberately delayed the progress of copying the books. It was just that there were too many books in his house. He could not improve the efficiency of copying them by himself. Jiang Pingji pushed the knowledge to Qing Cheng's house. Suka did not doubt her. "I plan to let the female troops learn first aid. Women have always been more meticulous than men, so they will have an advantage in learning." Suka pondered and said, "Longjuan's plan is not bad. Even if the female troops can't kill enemies on the battlefield, they can save the lives of seriously injured soldiers. They can still make great contributions. But I still have some worries in my heart." "What are you worried about?" Suka said, "Medicine is different from other things. It concerns human lives. If you insist on letting the female troops learn, it is best to hire a doctor with high medical ethics and skills to teach them. If they learn by themselves, I am worried that accidents will happen." Jiang Pingji nodded. "Your worries are not unreasonable. I have the same plan. I will look for candidates when we arrive in Shangjing. The medical standards in ancient times were very low, but there were many talented people. They could be found if they searched carefully. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.